The City Council meeting. The San Bruno City Council Public Financing Authority Successor Agency for November the 13th, 2018. Please roll call, Melissa.
Councilmember Medina.
Here.
Councilmember O'Connell. Here. Councilmember Salazar.
Here.
Vice Mayor Davis. Here. Mayor Medina.
Here. May I please ask Mr. Bill Forrester if you would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance this evening. Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you, Chief. Do we have any speaker cards for public comment for items not on the agenda? Is there anybody here that wanted to speak on items that are not on tonight's agenda? Okay. Now moving on to announcements. We have quite a few, but they are enjoyable and exciting. And at this time, we would like to receive, which we already have been honored by your music earlier, but again, we're going to receive a musical performance by our Parkside Intermediate School String Ensemble. Go ahead.
Hi, my name is Arturo, and I've been playing the cello for 2 years.
Hi, my name is Giuseppe Venezia, and I'm in the 8th grade, and I play the viola at Parkside Intermediate School.
Hello, my name is Elise Mahfouz. I am the teacher of these fantastic students. I'm also going to introduce Victor Reyes next to me. He's in 8th grade, and he's been playing his violin for 2 years. Moving on to Marcel.
Hi, I'm Marcel Osmono. I've been playing the violin for 2 years, and I'm in 8th grade.
Hi, I'm Hayat Al-Zagul. I'm in 8th grade, and I've been playing violin for 2 years.
Hi, I'm Schieffer Linden. I'm in 8th grade, and I've been playing the violin for 5 years.
And thank you very much for helping out during the reception, and thank you for your performance. Some of these young people were performing a cappuccino and have been doing a great job. So thank you to the staff at Parkside and to the students. Also, I want to take the opportunity to thank the San Bruno Garden Club for providing the floral arrangement. Also, moving on to announcements, just for the community's information, we did send, the city of San Bruno, along with many other communities, send a strike team up to assist up north. We have 4 of our firefighters that left Thursday afternoon and are working diligently. And I want to acknowledge also our fire personnel in the back of the room this evening. This is something that is a unique honor to be able to be here as it is presented for a 25-year service award to our San Bruno Fire Department Battalion Chief, Bill Forrester. Fire Chief Cresta.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor, members of the council. It's my pleasure to introduce Bill tonight. Bill was hired in November 1st, 1993, and when I looked at his PAF today, it was typed on a typewriter, so they're all. He's worked in many capacities during his career, becoming a paramedic on December 8th of 1998. Bill was promoted to captain on December 5th of the year 2000, and on April 3rd, 2017, he became an interim battalion chief, and we formally promoted him January 8th of this year. Bill's the B-Shift battalion chief. That's his crew in the back, here to honor him. His collateral duties include policies and procedures, wellness, and personal protective equipment. Perhaps Bill's biggest accomplishment was marrying a San Bruno girl, Amy, formerly McNaughton, who's here tonight. And so, Mayor, would you like to present the certification for Bill Forrester? Thanks, Chief.
Mr. Forrester. Didn't think we'd be nice with you. All right.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. You can say a couple of words. Thank you, Chief. I'd like to thank Mayor Medina, council members, City Manager Grogan for recognizing my 25 years of service to our great little city. Time flies. It's almost 30 years ago that I started dating my wife, Amy. We pointed her out once. There she is. Wave, Amy. She grew up here in San Bruno. Amy's a hometown girl. And as luck would have it, I was fortunate enough to get hired here in her hometown. I've really grown to appreciate the tight community that exists here in San Bruno, and I know that she's had many lifelong friends that came from her days here in town. And it's pretty neat to see the other local San Bruno kids either sitting on the council, Laura Davis, or being the mayor, Mr. Mayor Rico Medina, or my fire chief, Dave Cresta. So that's pretty cool to be here, working here with these individuals that have known my wife for so many years, and it's just an honor. I also want to take a moment to thank Chief Cresta for giving me the opportunity to join his command staff. It's an honor and a privilege to be working close to not only people who I trust very much, that I've worked my entire career with, but people that I consider my friends. And so those would be Scott Marshall, who's getting ready to retire shortly after well over 30 years in this job, giving to this city. My friend Mike Kennedy, another battalion chief, and our new fire marshal, Jason Williams. Jason, there he is. And it's our job to carry forward Chief Cresta's vision, and I want to say that I've never been more proud or excited about the direction that our department and our city is going in my 25 years here. I think we're really on solid ground, and we've done some amazing things as a group, and the future is very bright. And lastly, I just want to say that I'm humbled and honored to be a part of our current group of firefighters and captains right here. That's B shift, but there's 2 other shifts, and we've got some amazing, talented, dedicated, committed people with a can-do attitude working in this department, and it's just fantastic to be a part of that, and the future's very bright. So thank you very much for the recognition.
And Bill, we appreciate your comments, and in these times that obviously the fire departments are working very diligently throughout the state. and for what you do for our community. So to you, for your 25 years of dedicated service to this community, and to all of those firefighters in the back, chiefs, et cetera, captains, thank you. Thank you for the service you provide, and thank you for the help you give our community.
Absolutely. Thank you.
Now we'll move on to a general update on the San Bruno Park School District services and activities from our district superintendent, Dr. Stella Kemp.
Good evening. Good evening, Honorable Mayor and City Council members. Before I begin, I want to just recognize Terry Chavez, trustee-elect. Did she leave the room? There she is right back here. It's our new trustee. I don't see any other trustees here in attendance this evening. So, well, it's been about a year since I've been here to see you. When I arrived in the district in August 2017, the district was in a very different place than it is today. We were in fiscal recovery. There were staffing issues. As I began to learn more about the district, I recognized that we lacked systems. There was a history of labor relation issues in the district, and there really wasn't a plan for the educational and special education programs. And so a lot has happened in this past year. When I arrived, we had a foundation of strong partnerships in our community, and the partnerships with the Community Foundation, the Education Foundation, with YouTube, with the Welch Foundation, with a variety of number of citizens here in San Bruno. And there was a readiness in the community for something to happen in the school district. People really wanted to see some improvements. And so when I came to you this time last year, I said we had 4 goals. Our goals were to improve the educational program by providing 21st century teaching and learning to our students, to develop our community as partners, to achieve and maintain fiscal solvency, and to attract and develop our staff. And ultimately, we wanted to make sure that we had the dollars in the bank, the fiscal resources to be able to serve a program for today and for tomorrow. And so what I want to talk to you about are about these 4 things, beginning with the fiscal health. So what we did in the last year is that to address our fiscal health, we started with the reorganization of looking at every position in the school district office and identifying, did these positions actually meet the goals of the school district? We've had some challenges with special education. We had a number of students that have been going out of the school district and being served in non-public settings. We've brought those students back, and we have a new special education director who's doing a fantastic job to analyze the program and make recommendations for improvement. We now have a positive 3-year budget. Last year, the district was identified as a basic aid school district here in California, and so that helped us to kind of move along our fiscal recovery much quicker than we had expected. Last year, we closed El Crystal School. We consolidated the students into 2 schools, into Allen and into John Muir, and now we have placed the property on the market, and the board will be making a decision on this shortly. We have received nearly $500,000 in grants in the past year, and we've improved our student attendance across the board in our school district. Regarding our under-enrolled aging schools, I am here to say we are celebrating in San Bruno. The most recent update on the Measure X campaign showed that there were nearly 7,000 midterm voters here in San Bruno, which is the highest turnout in many years, and we passed with a 67.7% margin, which is one of the highest margins that's been seen in this area. So congratulations to the community. And this would not have been possible if it weren't for the support of you, the City Council, community members. Many of them, I see you in the audience this evening, who are here, who walked and talked to folks, made phone calls. We're out on Saturdays. We're out at the community, at the concerts in the community. So thank you for your support and for your trust in the school district to move forward our vision for 21st century schools. And one of the things we did last year, kind of to get ourselves ready for the campaign, was our facilities visioning and planning. And we had a committee of local stakeholders, including we had Scott Rogie was there, we had the fire department, we had Parks and Rec, all came forward from the city to help us think about what does a school look like, a 21st century school, and how might we shape that in our design for our new schools. One of the things I want to point out to the community is that we are seeing a decline in enrollment in San Bruno schools, and this is largely because birth rates are lower. Period. Birth rates are lower, and so that's the challenge that we're seeing. And you can notice from 1 year to the next, almost 100 kindergartner difference. So we're noticing that, and we're keeping that in mind as we're developing our programs. Another area that, and you can see our school enrollment, as you know, we closed El Cristal. It was a school that had 165 kids that lived in the community in the attendance boundary. And now you can see sort of what our attendance or enrollment looks like from October the 1st this year at all of our remaining schools. So with Rollingwood being about 252 and the largest school being Parkside Intermediate, which serves grades 6, 7, and 8. One of the other things that we have been doing is really working on how we can improve the recruitment and retention of staff. And so we were very fortunate this year. We settled negotiations with the Teachers Association. In 7 sessions, a full contract was settled with a 3% salary increase for the 18-19 school year and a 2% salary increase in the 19-20 school year. Also making some contract adjustments, and with our classified association, we have also settled contract for the next 3 years. We've been very aggressive with recruiting staff, and we started off the school year with only 1 teacher opening in general education, which we filled with about 2 weeks after school started. It is challenging to hire teachers all across California. There is a tremendous teacher shortage, and it's particularly in special education, and we're working on some strategies to try to grow our own special education teachers. We have been talking about staff housing partnership. I've been investigating a couple of different opportunities out there, and we'll be bringing a report back to the board. As you know, in March, we hired a new assistant superintendent of curriculum and instruction, or educational services, and she has put together a comprehensive professional development plan. And that's part of the project for us to improve student achievement, is supporting our teachers to have the skill set to address the needs of our students. And then lastly, we have had a great success with our community, with our PTAs, and with the Chamber of Commerce, who've helped us to recognize and appreciate our employees. With our launch this year of the school year, we had a convocation at Parkside that was hosted by the Chamber of Commerce breakfast, and then we had Welch Family Foundation provide gift baskets, and then we have a spring recognition for all of our teachers and staff. And one of the other things that we're doing is really looking at our educational programs. So, we're getting ready to adopt a new curriculum for social studies. And then next year we'll have a new science curriculum coming on board. We're working on expanding our partnerships for summer programs. And this year we served more students than we ever have at the middle school through a partnership with the Silicon Valley Education Foundation. And we also have our Big Lift summer program that we have for students, and we expanded that through some local funding. We're focusing mostly on this year on English learner programming to ensure that all of our English learners are getting the program that they need for to become fluent in English. So that's kind of where we are today. And so I want to just spend a little time talking to you about where we're going. So in our district, we want to ensure that our children thrive, that they're thriving academically, socially, and emotionally, and that they become contributing members of society. Well, in a K-8 school district, you're like, well, they go to high school. Okay, so we're trying to make sure that when they get to high school, they're ready for high school. And so to do that, what we're doing is we're focusing on improving our educational program. We have a project that's starting in January. It's called Portrait of a Graduate, which is our strategic plan for our educational program, which really defines what are those skill sets that the students have to have when they leave San Bruno Park to be successful in high school and beyond. We continue to implement our SEAL program, which is a language acquisition program in grades K through 3. Next year we'll be adding pre-K to this so that we can ensure that our preschool programs have a quality language development program. Parkside is working on middle school transformation efforts to ensure that the kids who are there are getting their needs met, that we're trying to implement a variety of different structures at the school. And so the new principal, along with the instructional leadership team at the school, is looking at how they can ensure that the middle school serves the students to make sure that they're successful for high school. And you can see a variety of other things. We've had STEM program expansion at Allen and John Muir, project-based learning, coding with Google. our GATE program is coming back. Our science fair is coming back. Summer programs, as I mentioned. We're getting ready to start our early learning community of practice to bring all of our early childhood care providers together, and data systems to monitor all this. So if we're going to do something, we want to make sure that we're getting the results for our dollars. And the last thing I wanted to say to this is that we're really focusing on the leadership development for our principals. Last week, we took our principals to a leadership conference, and we have principals in our district who've been there for almost 20 years, and they have never attended a conference before. And so we felt like that if we want to ensure that they have the skill sets to work with their staff to really implement these things, we need to develop our principals. And so we're very pleased, and we got a lot of great feedback from them that they had gained a lot from this attending this conference. Of course, now we have Measure X, and so it's time for us to begin thinking about what are we going to do with our facilities and what's the first project. And so the Measure X committee there's two components to it. We have a Citizens Oversight Committee, and then we'll have the internal committees that will work on kind of phasing this out, and then we'll have the community input committees that will work on the design aspect of that. And then the other part is the sale of the surplus property. We have El Crystal, as I mentioned earlier, and then the board will need to decide what they're going to do with the remaining projects that we have. And as you recall, these are the things that we want to make sure we do when we address the new schools: science labs, collaboration and design spaces and technology, handicap access, flexible multi-use spaces, and also thinking about student growth, because while our enrollment is down now by 100 kindergartners, and that will matriculate over the years, they will come. If you build it, they will come. And so we want to make sure that we're ready for the children eventually when they do show up. The physical health is of great concern to any school district, and so we're always being told that the recession is just around the corner. You need to be prepared for that. And so we're making sure that we're continuing to implement the recommendations of the Budget Advisory Committee. We're bringing together our strategic planning, our budget advisory, and our local control accountability planning committees. So we have one large committee that sort of oversees all the educational and fiscal programs that are happening in the district. So everything is lined up and it's very clear. And one of the things that I'm doing as a superintendent is really going out and trying to develop partnerships and looking for grant opportunities for us, because I know there's some things that we would like to do that we can't currently do, so we're looking for ways to be able to fund those programs through grants. And then I think the most important thing in any school district is the engagement of the community in our schools. And so I just wanted to point out to the council and to our community that there are ways for folks to get involved. You can get involved by being part of our strategic planning or our facilities visioning committee, Measure X Citizens Oversight Committee, or you can also just be involved by reading our communications that we put out there. We have a new website. It's sbpsd.org, brand new website, shorter address. You can also come to any of our board meetings, which we have either at Parkside or at Allen School, and the agendas are posted online. We also have a Facebook page, San Bruno Park Schools. And then as a parent or a student, if you want to get involved, there's a variety of ways you can get involved, from being a member of the PTA to being part of the district's English Learner Advisory Committee to attending parent education programs that we offer at Bel Air and at Parkside. You can read our electronic newsletters that are going out now that come out every quarter. And if you're a PTA parent and you'd like to be on the President's Council, we have a group of 6 PTA presidents who come and meet with me once a quarter, and we try to coordinate all the services of our PTAs across the school district. And then lastly, of course, at the school side, if being involved in School Site Council and the English Learner Acquisition Committee. And then the last thing is that I think is so important is that when we hire staff, we spend a lot of time and invest a lot of money in the projects of bringing people to our district. And so it's so important for us that when we go out and we recruit people, we've put together these new recruitment packets for getting folks to come to our district to showcase the great work that's happening here in San Bruno and the opportunity for a young educator or a young administrator to come and work with us. And so we're utilizing a lot of online platforms now. We've been out to a couple of job fairs, which had never happened in the past, to recruit people and try to find folks early in the school year. And then we're working right now with our staff to update the teacher evaluation instruments, and we're trying to figure out ways that we can leverage our programs in the district to be able to give teachers prep time during the day. You know, one of the challenges an elementary teacher has is that they're teaching, you know, for 6 hours a day, and they have no prep. So by using PE or music or those kinds of programs, we can give the teachers an opportunity to come together and to prep or to collaborate with their colleagues. And the last piece is really around professional development. So with our new Assistant Superintendent of Ed Services, we're really working on trying to ensure that we have a comprehensive multi-year plan to train staff on strategies that will support the educational outcomes of our students. And so as I close, I just wanted to say that in San Bruno, our school district has really moved from a school district that's been looking in the rearview mirror for years to an organization that's now looking out to the future. We're looking out the windshield, we're looking forward, and we're planning what's going to happen next and be ready for those things. So thank you.
And then Dr. Kemp, you did have one of the school board members came in. Mr. Mason is in the back.
Yes, Mr. Mason. Yes. Thank you.
We'll issue a tardy slip for that.
Oh. Dr. Kemp, thank you very much for coming forward and bringing the council up to date and the community. As we've always said, we may serve in different facets with the school board and the city council, but in essence, we serve one community, and we serve all the residents. So thank you. Thank you for the partnership, and thank you for the update, and we look forward to the next one.
My pleasure. Thank you.
Next on announcements, we are going to receive the annual report from the Parks and Recreation Commission. Chair Palmer.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor Medina, members of the City Council. My name is Mike Palmer, and I currently serve as the chairperson for the Parks and Recreation Commission. I'm here tonight to present the Commission's annual report for the 2017-2018 fiscal year and to outline the work plan for 2018-2019. This slide shows the commission members for 2017-2018. There's two pictures because, as you know, we had some recent defections leading to the appointment of two new commissioners, Commissioner Jessica Martinucci, Commissioner Michael Zastro. And in addition, I have some other members of the commission here with me. There's Commissioner Chris Gonzalez, Commissioner Alex Melendrez, and Commissioner Lori Greenberg. I'd like to thank them for taking the time to come tonight. Okay, thank you. The purpose of the Parks and Recreation Commission is to make recommendations to the City Council regarding community recreation needs. These could include input on recreational activities, input on the various classes and programs offered by the Recreation Department, input on the use of recreational facilities and equipment, and input on the operation, supervision, and maintenance of playgrounds, athletic fields, the community swimming pool, indoor recreation facilities, auditoriums, and other facilities designated for recreational use, with the exception of the Senior Center. As you know, the Senior Center has its own advisory board. In 2017-2018, the accomplishments from the Park and Recreation Commission are listed. These included ribbon cutting for Earl Glenview Park. The Commission supported community engagement and the master plan design process for the new Recreation and Aquatic Center, updated the Parks and Recreation Commission's procedures for conducting visits to the city's parks, completed pathway improvements within available funding for the pathways at both Grundy and Commodore Parks, completed the city restroom replacement project, implemented City Council policy changes to rules regulating dogs in parks, revised and updated the Parks and Recreation Commission handbook, And finally presented the Parks and Recreation Commission's annual Community Recognition Award. On Saturday, October 27, the city dedicated the new Earl Glenview Park. The dedication ceremony was well attended by the City Council, both past and present, city staff, both past and present, the Parks and Recreation Commission, local dignitaries, members of the community, and most importantly, a large number of neighborhood residents. The picture on the left shows the original groundbreaking ceremony, which took place on Saturday, December 9, 2017. The small picture is a sign that had been posted at the new park, and below that is a picture of the people that were at the dedication immediately enjoying this new facility. The Commission assisted with the planning, development, and the final approval of the construction plans for this new park. In addition to the discussions that took place at the regular Park and Recreation Commission meetings, I wanted to acknowledge the subcommittee that also took part in the community meetings for Earl Glenview Park. Commissioners Laura Davis, Lucy Zamatia, and Lori Greenberg were at the community meetings that took place. While at these meetings, the commissioner observed the process, gathered input, and got a feel for the types of amenities that the local community wanted to see in the new park. In addition, prior to the dedication, Commissioners Chris Gonzalez and Michael Zastro coordinated and adopted a park exercise that gave some of the neighbors the opportunity to plant some new shrubs in the park. These two slides show some of the conceptual designs that were developed as a result of the input gathered for the new Recreation and Aquatic Center. The Parks and Recreation Commission participated in 2 community outreach events at the existing Recreation Center to help gather information from the public on the new Recreation and Aquatic Center's design and amenities. These 2 meetings took place on March 22 and May 17. Both meetings consisted of an informal drop-in presentation from 3 to 5 p.m., followed by a more structured community meeting from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. Additionally, the Commission also listened to 3 presentations from the lead architect group at its regularly scheduled Commission meetings. These presentations took place on February 21, March 21, and May 16. At these meetings, the Commission provided input to architects and discussed different design ideas. Commission Vice Chair Chris Gonzalez and Commission Chair Mike Palmer also served on the city's advisory board, along with members of the City Council and representatives from city staff. This advisory board met on 5 occasions from February through June and provided valuable support to the architectural firm conducting the meetings. Here you see a couple of play structures located into the city's parks. The picture on the left is from Forest Lane, and the picture on the right is from Pacific Heights Park. Prior to undertaking this project, the Commission handbook outlined the process by which the Commission would conduct visits to the city's parks. This previous process called for the Commission to visit several city parks on a 4-year rotating basis. In addition, the visits were to take place during the May Commission meeting each year. This meant that each park was seen by each commissioner only once every 4 years. The Commission decided that this was not the best manner in which to view our parks, and also decided that trying to do this at one of the Commission meetings was an ineffective way to visit the parks. After discussing this at several Commission meetings, it was decided to form a subcommittee to develop a plan to present to the Commission that would be more effective and could be incorporated into the revised Commission handbook. I want to acknowledge Commissioner Lori Greenberg, who chaired the subcommittee, and Commissioner Dave Nigel for their outstanding work in developing a new plan and bringing it to the Commission for approval. This slide shows a copy of the new park visit form that was developed by the subcommittee and approved by the Commission. The new process encourages each commissioner to visit each park at least once each year at a time when it is more convenient to the commissioner. Upon the completion of each visit, this form will be submitted to the city staff for review. I want to note for the council that these are only visits and not evaluations. This slide shows 2 of the pathways that were resurfaced. The slide on your left shows the newly resurfaced pathway. At Commodore, and the slide on your right shows a newly resurfaced pathway at the entrance to Grundy Park. Both of these pathways were completed as part of the project from the previous fiscal year that also brought resurfacing improvements to the pathways at City Park. What you see pictured here are the two new restrooms in San Bruno City Park. The city on the left is the new restroom facility located near Diamond 3. The larger picture on the right shows the new facility located near the playground behind Tom Lehrer Field. The small picture in the middle shows the interior of one of the restrooms. This is really a fantastic addition to the park and desperately needed. These new restrooms replace the old ones that had been built in 1962. So this was sorely needed. I want to thank the council for that. On this slide, you see a picture of the new signs that have been installed in the city's parks which allow dogs on leashes. Also pictured is the new signage and a sample of the dispenser used to dispense doggy waste bags. The commission was instrumental in helping the city council develop the pilot program for this, which took place from April 24, 2017 to October 24, 2017. Subsequent to the pilot program, the commission made several recommendations to the council, which included the new signs to be installed needed to contain language that dogs must be on a leash no more than 6 feet in length. The new signs also needed to contain language that stated dogs were not to be allowed in or near any play structure or play area. Pet waste dispensers and signs would be installed at all major entrances to the city's parks. And finally, the commission also recommended that dogs would not be permitted in 5 of the city's smaller parks. Those parks are the Herman Tot Lot, Posey Park, Catalpa Tot Lot, Ponderosa Park, and Lomita Park. The Parks and Recreation Commission first adopted its handbook in February of 2011. Since then, since the original adoption date, the handbook has been revised and updated on 3 separate occasions. What you see pictured on the cover page of the handbook and addendum number 1 from the latest revision, which was approved by the commission at its May meeting. The latest revision contains several important changes, including the addition of the annual commission calendar and the commission roster as separate pages, which are included as addendums. Because these have now been included as addendums and are not part of the main body of the handbook, it'll be easier for staff to make any necessary changes. The addition of Addendum 3 contains excerpts from the city's municipal code, ordinance number 908, which discusses Parks and Recreation Commission duties. Addendum 4 is a template or a form for documenting meeting agendas and subsequent meeting minutes for any subcommittee meetings which may be needed to conduct the business of the commission. And addendum number 5 is the new park visit form that was shown previously. I want to thank the entire commission, both past and present, as well as city staff, for helping to make these revisions. The valuable input that was received from everyone has helped to make this document something that the Parks and Recreation Commission can be proud of. And this year, the commission presented its annual Community Recognition Award to Carolyn Livingood. Carolyn was a more than worthy recipient of this honor for many reasons. And I'm just going to cite some of her many achievements. First honoree of the Patriot of the Year in 2016, president of the Avenue of the Flags Committee for Golden Gate National Cemetery, member of the City of San Bruno's Beautification Task Force, member of the city's Crime Prevention Committee for 25 years, including 4 terms as the president, an original member of the city's Cultural and Arts Commission since its inception in 2002, and honored by the city for her many years of public service with the declaration of May 2, 2002 as Carolyn Livingood Day. I want to acknowledge Commissioner Dave Nigel providing the narrative during the April Commission meeting outlining her many accomplishments. The Commission was very happy and proud to be able to present this honor to Carolyn's daughter and son, who were present at that meeting to receive this award in her honor. And finally, this slide shows our work plan for 2018-19. We're going to begin the process for improvements for the Commodore Park Dog Run, continued support for community engagement and the master plan for the new Recreation and Aquatic Center, and finalize the construction design for Florida Avenue Park. So this will conclude the annual report for this year. I'd be more than happy to answer any questions that the council might have.
Thank you. Any questions of council? Then Mr. Palmer, thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you to the Parks and Rec Commission, and we look forward to finishing out this year and the excitement for 2019 and what it will bring us.
Thank you.
At this time, also, I'd like to ask our city manager to introduce our newest member to the team, our community services director. Sure.
Good afternoon. Javon Grogan, city manager. It's my pleasure to introduce Darcy Smith, whose first day with the city of San Bruno is today. She is our new community development director. Darcy comes to us with more than 20 years of experience in planning and zoning. She was most recently the principal planner and zoning administrator for the city of San Mateo and has a wealth of experience. So we're really happy to have her, and Darcy at one time was a San Bruno resident as well. So thank you.
Darcy, welcome. Thank you for coming to our city. Thank you for coming back home. And to my knowledge, this is probably the first time in at least 2 years we've had a full executive team and all department head positions filled. And that was done this year. And so welcome to all of you that are here. Thank you. And together, well, nobody gets to leave. But thank you, and look forward to your strength as the executive team and senior leadership to help guide us, to guide the city. Also, we have a couple of appeals and other items, and if you do, and you have speaker cards that have not been turned in, please turn them in to the city clerk. And then we will move on to consent. Melissa.
All items on the consent calendar are considered routine or implement an earlier council action and may be enacted by one motion. There will be no separate discussion unless requested.
Any action from council?
To the chair.
Vice Mayor?
I move that we accept the conduct of the items under consent.
Second. It's a motion made and second to accept all items under consent calendar. All those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Unanimous. We'll move on to conduct of business.
Item 6A, receive first quarter financial update report for fiscal year 2018-19 as of September 30th, 2018, and adopt a resolution approving the carryover of fiscal year 2017-18 purchase order encumbrances.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor, members of the City Council. Can you hear me? Is it on? Okay. My name is Keith DiMartini. I'm the Finance Director for the City. It is my pleasure to present the first quarter financial projection for the current fiscal year 18-19. The objective of this item before you tonight is twofold. Number one, please receive the quarter one report as of the end of September 30th of 2018. And then number two, we're requesting you to adopt a resolution amending the fiscal year 18-19 operating and capital improvement budget by approving of the carryover fiscal year 17-18 purchase order encumbrances or commitments that we've already made to our vendors on specific projects. So the agenda for this evening is for me to provide you with an overview of various tables and charts of our quarter one financial projections so far, details regarding our purchase order encumbrances requesting to be carried forward. I want to talk a little bit about some recent process improvements that staff have made, just a very high-level overview of what the proposed budget schedule will look like going forward into the next budget cycle, and then again my request to City Council this evening. So before I jump into some of the financial tables, I just want to give an overview of what our fiscal operating year looks like. Our fiscal year begins on July 1st of 2018 and will end on June 30th of 2019. We will do formal financial summary tables and projections at the end of each fiscal quarter. So again, this quarter's financial projection is data and information as of the end of September of 2018. I'll come back to you, plan to come back to you back in January to provide you with an update as of the end of Q2. And I'll plan to come back to you in April to provide you an update at the end of Q3. For the end of Q4, quarter four, there's a bit more work to close out the fiscal year. And so the plan will be to, when we prepare our annual financial reports, our CAFR, that will come before Council planned to come in January as well. So this slide shows a very high-level overview of our fiscal year 18-19 revenue and expenditure budget in the general fund only. Council adopted this budget, and it does require the use of just under $1.7 million of fund balance to fund budgeted expenses above and beyond the projected revenues in the current fiscal year. This is a structural deficit, as we are aware, and staff will be analyzing this in the coming months as we prepare for the upcoming budget cycle. The revenue pie chart on the left on this slide shows the proportional share of the major revenue sources in our general fund, with property tax and sales tax revenues being the most significant sources for the city's operations. The pie chart on the right shows the expenditures of our major city functions that the general fund goes to fund. Just a reminder that these charts only represent the general fund. The city receives revenue and funds critical operations in various enterprises and special revenue funds as well that aren't shown on these pie charts. I'd like to provide an overview of the revenue sources through the first quarter of the current fiscal year compared to the adopted budget and compared to quarter one of last fiscal year. High-level summary, revenues through Q1 are at approximately 17% of the total budget, which is very similar to where we were last fiscal year at the same point in time. Property tax is typically paid by property owners in 2 installments, in December and in April. Thus, the city will recognize a majority of property tax revenues in those months. For sales tax, revenues are just a little bit behind the same period last year, resulting from timing differences from payments primarily attributable to the delay in tax filing processing from a new system that was implemented by the California Department of Tax and Fee Administration. This is a phenomenon that's being felt cities across the state. Our sales tax advisor currently projects that we will likely be on budget by the end of the fiscal year, so this really is just timing differences. For motor vehicle license fees, revenues received at the same time that we receive property taxes. For regulatory card room taxes, the city does send out quarterly bills. The Q2 bill was sent out earlier than expected, and so the revenue was received in Q1 instead of Q2. This again is resulting in just a timing difference. Revenue is projected to be on budget by the end of the year. And for business taxes, our annual renewal notifications are sent to all licensed businesses and are due to the city in July, which is why the July revenue is typically much higher than you would expect a run rate to be. So moving on to expenditures. This is an overview of our expenditures through Q1 compared to the budget and compared to quarter one of last fiscal year as well. In summary, our expenditures through Q1 are about 30% of the total budget so far, which is slightly higher than last fiscal year at the same point in time. Quarter one expenditures are about $14.4 million of the budget. All departments are within an acceptable range at the end of Q1, and expenditures are primarily higher due to staff turnover that we've had and a significant amount of hiring to fill those budgeted positions over the past year. The table in the staff report before you does summarize the number of new staff that have been employed over the past year. About 42 staff represent 16% of the city's workforce. Again, these are all budgeted positions. The first quarter expenditures are typically higher also due to the city choosing to take advantage of the CalPERS prepayment option for both safety and miscellaneous plans for our annual costs for unfunded accrued liabilities for the retirement system. The city chooses to do this rather than pay in monthly installments to minimize the overall cost of the payment. It's better for the city to make a one-time payment than it is to spread it over the year. This payment is just over $5 million annually. So that's why the costs are showing a little bit higher in Q1 proportionally. I would expect that run rate to go down over the next 3 quarters. Moving on to our enterprise funds, water and wastewater revenues for the first quarter came in as expected. They do include 3 months of service charges for from the 5-year rate plan that was approved by the City Council back in May of 2017. Cable television enterprise revenues and expenditures came in fairly consistent to last fiscal year at this time as well. And the stormwater fees are collected through the county property tax roll, so we would expect the first payments to be received in December with the other property tax payments. Here's a summary of our revenues and expenditures for the city's 4 internal service funds. These funds operate like a typical business, and they exclusively support the other city departments in the city. Charges for each of these funds are done primarily on a monthly allocation basis based on the budget, and you'll see a difference in our self-insurance expenses in Q1. That was primarily due to a large payment from our liability and property insurance premium that was paid last year in October, which would have been during quarter 2. So that would have been reflected in quarter 2 last year. So that's why there's a difference there. Again, just a timing issue. So I know I just had a number of slides up there with a lot of numbers. So just my key takeaways to you is that our general fund, our revenues are coming in as expected. Our expenditures are within normal run rates that I would expect at this time. I don't see any major issues with any of the revenue trends or expenditures to date. There's no indication requiring any budget action at this time. And then for our enterprise and our internal service funds, again, the activity that I see is normal and expected. So moving on to the request to council, we are requesting purchase order carry forward. This table represents the dollar value of the outstanding encumbrances or the commitments to our vendors as of the end of June 30th of 2018, the end of last fiscal year. We are requesting reappropriating these dollars into the current fiscal year budget to ensure that the previously authorized funds are available in the current year to cover expenditures for multi-year projects in our continuing obligations. This is a routine annual request that comes before council, and it's required in order for us to wrap up our prior fiscal year closeout and reporting. The Finance Department has confirmed that these are all active purchase orders with department staff for projects that are in progress. I'd like to take this opportunity to also provide an overview of some recent process improvements that staff have been working on over the past 3 months since I started with the city. On the purchasing side, staff have conducted an assessment of various procure-to-pay policies and procedures. We're drafting new purchasing policies, forms, and templates, and a training to roll out to all staff. We've also reviewed credit card practices and adjusted credit limits to ensure that they're an optimal amount for the type and the frequency and the staff that need these credit cards. We've also improved internal controls and procedures regarding the printing of checks. We're preparing to make a push to our vendor community to take advantage of being paid via Automated Clearinghouse, or ACH. The city will achieve cost savings over time with this push by reducing our costs on printing checks. Our vendors will receive their payments quicker, and that they'll have less administrative burden by receiving payments electronically. We're also began submitting and approving wire transfers to our bank online with additional safeguards. Prior to that, we had to send a fax to our bank to do so and would sometimes get less control in order to do that. We've also done an assessment on cash handling, reviewing how city staff handle cash, coins, and checks to align with best practices. We implemented a remote deposit scanner at the front desk in City Hall, which will improve internal controls, and it processes our bank deposits a lot quicker, and we can achieve interest quicker as well. We've also done some back office automation from some of our systems so that they can talk to each other and updating our customer accounts. We've also begun digitizing our business license records, and we're storing them electronically so we can do research quicker and provide better customer service at the front counter. We're exploring how we can answer questions on utility bills and business licenses through using the city's service request app, Bruno Responds. So this is just a number of things that we've been working on to provide better service to our customers and become more efficient. This table shows in the coming weeks what we'll be doing to plan for the upcoming budget cycle, fiscal year 1920. It'll include reviewing prior budget year processes, potential process improvements, and key deadlines. The table lists the key anticipated dates during the process. During February and March is when staff will plan to work very closely with City Council to discuss priorities and related budget topics. More information will be coming in the coming weeks as we get closer to executing some of this schedule. So in summary, my request to Council is to receive the Q1 report as of the end of September 30th of 2018, and to adopt a resolution amending the current fiscal year operating and capital budget by approving of the carryover from fiscal year 17-18 purchase order encumbrances. That concludes my presentation. I'd be happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you very much for that detailed report and update. Questions from council? Irene?
I'd have a question, but you've only been here 3 months?
Yes, ma'am.
You've done a remarkable job. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Vice Mayor? Laura?
I would concur. I appreciate the report. I appreciate the details in it. And I appreciate the process improvements. I think we can always do that, and we can always look at improving processes. And that does save time and money. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anything else? Michael, Marty? I do want to also echo some of what my colleagues have said. In a short time, I've seen the safeguards, I've seen processes, I've seen protocols, and I see us moving forward as far as just the service level, digitized, ensuring safeguards, and those are things that I think are a fresh set of eyes that have come in and looked at the department, and to see how not only can we continue to do what's right for the city and protect its assets, but also provide a service level and efficiency that saves time and money. So thank you very much, and when you are at the office tomorrow, please thank the finance department.
I will. Thank you very much.
And now, of course, there's one thing, that's why you're not going to sit down yet. I know. You would like to have a resolution. So do we have a motion and a second for that resolution?
I'll move to.
Oh, go ahead.
I'll move to introduce resolution.
Michael, second.
I second.
Melissa?
Councilmember Medina?
Aye.
Councilmember O'Connell?
Aye.
Councilmember Salazar?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Davis?
Aye.
Mayor Medina?
Aye. Thank you. Thank you, Keith. Very much. Appreciate it. Okay. Now we're going to move on to the next item under conduct of business.
Item 6B, appeal of the removal of 2 heritage trees from the Florida Avenue Park development site.
Marty. Marty?
Yes. So I discussed this appeal briefly earlier today with our city attorney, Zaffarano, and he recommends I recuse myself from this appeal. One, I live within 500 feet of the park, and 2, the appeal impacts the park's design and potential use. So for that reason, for those reasons, I'm going to leave for a little bit.
But you'll come back.
Yeah, I plan to.
Okay, so we'll move on, continue on with the item B, and City Manager.
Good afternoon, Mayor, Council, and members of the public. Javon Grogan, City Manager. I will be presenting our item. We have a sliding pen problem. I'll be presenting our item today on the Florida Avenue Park. As the Council knows, I started with the city on July 30th, and shortly after becoming the City Manager, our interim Community Services Director departed from the city. We had already selected our new Community Services Director, Joanne McGreeny, who's in the audience, but for approximately 4 months, I also served as the interim Community Services Director with responsibility over our parks and our recreation. And so I took the lead since August on this project, and so I will give the presentation here tonight as well. So we have a few objectives of our presentation today, and there are 4 listed on the slide. The first one is to provide an overview of the development of the new Florida Avenue Park. We want to present and discuss the layout and design of the park, and then really talk about the critical issue that we're here grappling with is the 2 heritage trees that remain on the site. And so we want to provide a little background on the decision to remove those trees and the heritage tree removal permit that was provided, and also talk about the citizens' appeal, which is the item that's before you tonight. In addition, we'll discuss a few potential alternatives and next steps. So it looks like a long agenda, but I will be as brief as possible and really hit the core points. But our agenda for this presentation is we'll have the background. We'll talk about the site acquisition and the park planning process that was very in-depth. We'll talk about the current design that was approved by council, the park elements. We will also go over the heritage tree issue, both give a little background on the heritage tree ordinance, arborist findings and recommendations. We'll talk about the heritage tree removal permit, and then the appeal. Staff will also provide council with a few alternatives, Alternative 1 and Alternative 2. We'll also talk about the option of approving the permit or denying the permit. Then we'll have question and answers from council on the staff presentation. The appellant will have 10 minutes to present. We will have public comment, and then council discussion and direction. So the project site, as you can see on the screen, the project site is located in the Hart neighborhood, and this aerial shot really shows the Hart and the location of the site. So a little background. The city acquired the site for $600,000 in October of 2014. The city then undertook an internal planning process in 2015. There was a necessity for site remediation that cost approximately $430,000, and you see a picture of that remediation. And on top, you actually see a picture of the property prior to the remediation. It's worth noting that this property, prior to the city acquiring it, was a code enforcement issue for the community and the city that the community really grappled with for years. And so when the owner came into City Hall to address the code enforcement issues, conversations begun that led to eventually the city purchasing the site and developing the park. And so the city council adopted a budget of $1.4 million for park planning and design. It's also worth noting that in total, this park, once constructed, will represent a $2.6 million investment from the city of San Bruno. So a significant investment to bring a park to a neighborhood that very much needs it. A little bit of background, just interesting on the site. When the site was acquired, it came with a carving from 1915, a wood carving titled The Independence of Switzerland, that was carved by the former owner, Mr. Pergoset, of 324 Florida Avenue. The carving was actually displayed in the 1938 and 1939 Golden Gate International Exhibition, now the DeYoung Museum, and the city restored that beautiful carving, and it's currently on display in City Hall. It is 9 feet high by 10 feet wide. It weighs 3,000 pounds, and it's made of Hungarian mahogany. And so it's a wonderful artwork that if anyone goes in the City Hall, it's right there in the lobby. So a little bit about the master planning for this project. So the city undertook a master planning and hired a outside firm called MIG to undertake not only the planning process, but the community engagement thereabout. There was a needs assessment and a site inventory that was conducted. And in June of 2016 was the first community engagement workshop. A master plan was eventually developed and then adopted by the city council in October of 2016. And even at this point, this project was 2 years in the making. And so the image that is before you is an image from the master plan which really shows a central lawn feature with play equipment, both adult and children's play equipment. I think the important part about this, anytime you go from a master plan to final schematic designs, there are changes, but it is important to note that the two heritage trees are a part of this master plan, and the appellants, I'm sure, will point that out. Background. So a little bit more background. So following the adoption of the master plan in late 2016 and early 2017, preparation of specific plans and designs were undertaken. The city eventually awarded a construction contract to Star Construction on August of 2017 to begin constructing the park. Star Construction had a few challenges, and the city eventually canceled that contract. We are currently in negotiations with the legal department to finally resolve that contract, but that was a delay in the project. Around the same time, a number of design challenges came up with the project, and staff made a number of what I would call minor design changes. Some design changes regarding fencing, the irrigation connections, planting types, more hardy plants because they'd be toppled during the play activity, and some other changes. But the primary concerns that were raised were about the heritage trees that were in the construction diagrams to remain. It's also worth noting that there are a number of staffing changes that occurred throughout the life of this project. The community services department head that managed the project retired and is no longer with the city. The city manager that this project started with is no longer with the city. The interim community services director that helped to shepherd this project while he was here for approximately 100 days is no longer with the city. And so there was just a number of staffing changes that frankly impacted the progress on this project. A couple key features of the design is there is a children's play area with a rubberized play surface. There's adult exercise equipment with a cardio area and a multi-generational play equipment. As you'll see in the next image, there's a great lawn feature with turf. There's a minimum of 12 new trees that the plan calls for to be installed on the site. There's a neighborhood square with some nice scorched tone paving and picnic tables. There's also various pedestrian paths. And so this is the current design, and I will take a moment here just to point out. So the park is actually bordered by 4 streets. You have Martin Place toward the west, Taylor towards the south, Florida Avenue toward the southeast, and San Anselmo towards the eastern north. The important part, and it's highlighted, I think germane to our discussion today, is that the current design does call for including the 2 heritage trees. And it's also worth noting here that the larger of the 2 heritage trees is right under the play equipment, and we'll talk about some of the concerns that were raised with those being in the design. But first, let's talk about what is a heritage tree. So the San Bruno Municipal Code defines a heritage tree as a native bay, oak, redwood, or pine tree that is at least 6 inches or more in diameter, measured at 54 feet above natural grade. A heritage tree can also be any tree or stand of trees designated by the council to have special historical value or significant community benefit. A stand of trees that depend upon each other for their survival, or any other tree with a trunk diameter of 10 inches or more, measured at 54 feet above natural grade. The municipal code also provides for a removal process for heritage trees, and it is a normal process in our management of the urban forestry to have heritage tree permit removal projects. You know, I actually don't know how many we receive a year, but I can tell you in my 3.5 months here, I've seen at least 4 or 5. And so it does happen as a regular course of maintaining the urban landscape. So the heritage tree ordinance provides for a removal process. It requires a city permit. It is subject to specific site or tree conditions. There are also replanting requirements. So for each heritage tree that's removed, it has to be replaced with 2 24-inch box trees or one 36-inch box tree. There's an appeal process, so a minimum of a 10-day appeal process, and all appeals are heard by the City Council, which is why we are here today. And so now we will talk about the heritage trees that are currently at the project site for the new Florida Avenue Park. So there are 2 heritage trees on the site. One is a Norfolk Island pine, and we have one of the independent arborists here, and so he can talk more about the species, because believe it or not, it's actually not a pine, but the common name for it is a Norfolk Island pine. That tree is currently 90 feet tall. It has a trunk diameter of 36.5 inches. It has been topped in the past, and so the limbs branch out, and in the future they may grow at a faster pace because it has been topped in the past. As you can see from the tree, and this is the one on the left-hand side, the lower limbs have been removed. The other one is a deodar cedar tree that is currently 35 to 40 feet tall. It has 2 trunks. The main trunk is 29 inches in diameter, and the secondary trunk is 15 inches in diameter. And so with the diameter of these trees, they certainly meet our heritage tree ordinance. So a couple concerns that were raised. Again, these concerns were raised after the final construction diagrams were developed and awarded. So the proximity to the children's play equipment. One of the concerns was hazard from falling cones and the potential impact to the root system during construction. So as you saw, the Norfolk Island pine is on the northern side of the property, actually near the neighboring fence. But that tree is very much in the location where the pit for the play equipment will need to be constructed. And so one of the concerns that was raised was how much of the root structure would be impacted by the construction. There was also a concern with maintenance issues. The Norfolk Island pine excretes honeydew that can become very sticky, stick to clothing, potentially stick to the play equipment that would be under it, and really create a maintenance issue. There were a number of questions about the health of the trees, and members of the community were informed that the trees were diseased, and that was certainly a concern that the city had. There was also a concern about enhanced landscape maintenance from the various pine needles that drop. And also park aesthetics was raised, specifically with regard to the deodar cedar. And so the city hired two independent arborists. So when I arrived, I attended the August Park and Recreation Subcommittee, and there were a number of members in the community that really wanted to know the status. They had heard some of these concerns, and they had also heard that the trees would be removed. Being new, I committed to read a lot of the documents, understand what was going on, and I made the decision to hire two independent arborists because I really wanted there to be transparency and trust in the information that was being provided. And so we undertook that process. And so we hired two independent arborists, and those reports are in the packet before you. And so I'll go through the findings now. Specifically for the Norfolk Island pine, the arborist findings was the play structures are within 6 feet of the trunk. The root structure loss due to construction of the pits would be 25 to 30%. This tree is at its maturity point and producing many cones, and those cones are 1 to 2 pounds. I actually have one here. The cones, when they're on the tree, are 1 to 2 pounds, almost grapefruit size. And when they fall from near the top of the tree, 50 to 80 feet. And the arborist noted in the report that a falling cone could cause serious harm or death. And actually, they're sticky. And so both of the arborists recommended removing this tree due to really the concern with potential harm from the falling cones. Fresh squirrel damage was observed. So when these cones typically fall, they shrivel up and dry. And for most of the time when they fall, they are light or lighter and probably resembling more of an acorn. There was observed at the time when these arborists went out, or one of the arborists went out, a green cone on the ground, and the arborist who's here can articulate more, but oftentimes that happens because of squirrel damage. And so the recommendation was to remove this tree because it's inconsistent with the park design and the layout of the play equipment, and really to protect safety of the users at the park. This was private property. It has been purchased by the city, and building a park, we will be inviting people to be under this tree. The second heritage tree is a deodar cedar. The arborist's findings is that the tree has been heavily trimmed and topped in the past. As you can see, it is deformed. The deformity from the prior pruning is permanent, and the root loss from installation of the walking path, not necessarily the play equipment, here would be approximately 10 to 15%. The arborist's recommendations for this tree was remove one limb that has decayed and cracked, but the overall risk is currently low. One of the arborists did note that the presence of additional people under the root ball may help accelerate failure of the tree, but both arborists recommend that with proper care, the tree could remain. And so recap of the heritage tree removal process. So our staff arborists concluded that the trees should be removed. The city hired 2 independent arborists to provide second and third opinions. This information and an overall project update was provided to the Park and Recreation Commission at their September 19th meeting. Staff, in executing the current design, issued and posted 2 heritage tree removal permits on September 20th. There was a group citizen appeal that was received on September 26th. And so the appeal was duly received, and it complies with our municipal code guidelines. It was received by a group of 7 individuals. The primary reason cited was that the heritage trees are healthy. They are not diseased. Both arborists concluded that. The community design, by removing the trees, the appellants feel will be altered, and they believe the risk can be mitigated. The appellants will have a 10-minute presentation following the staff presentation, so I'll stop there and let them articulate their case. Potential design alternatives. So, as always, staff likes to provide the council with alternatives and options, and so we've done that in this case as well. And so should the council choose to accept the appeal, and accepting the appeal means that both heritage trees would be retained, staff developed 2 preliminary alternatives to retain both trees. Alternative Design 1 calls for the relocation of the children's play area closer to the middle of the park site, thereby increasing the distance from the root structure of the tree. It also moves the play equipment out of the fall zone, and we have an image of that. This alternative reduces the size of the lawn feature near the Florida Avenue side of the park. In addition, the fall zone around the Norfolk Island pine, staff would recommend fencing that off. We feel that the liability posed by this tree, no matter how slight, is significant to the city. With the arborist reports, we are on notice of the potential danger of this tree, and so should they remain on the site, and this is a public property that we would be inviting people to, we think that it's reasonable to fence off that portion to provide an added measure of safety, and that would amount to fencing off, I think, about 1/3 of the park, and you'll see that in the next diagram. So the estimated timeline to redesign the park and removing the play equipment, we talked to MIG, the designer. That cost would approximately be $50,000 to $75,000. We would then need a 3 to 6 month process to rebid the project and select a contractor. That 3 to 6 month process would happen initially because where we are now, we need to rebid the project. We estimate construction would start in the second quarter of 2019, anticipated completion in the fourth quarter of 2019 and early 2020. What's not on the slide but mentioned in the report is with the current design, we think that we can certainly rebid the project and finish the project in 2019. Under this model, contingent upon factors, potentially rain delays in 2019, we're estimating somewhere between the fourth quarter of 2019 and 2020. And so, I hit the wrong button. This is the redesign of alternative design 1. And so you have the Norfolk Island pine here and the Deodar cedar here. And so we would recommend this portion of the site actually being fenced off, the play equipment moving up. And so through this design, we think we can retain all of the elements that are currently in the park. What's really lost is the size of the Great Lawn and this area, which we would strongly recommend be fenced off and made unusable. Then there's alternative design 2, is to eliminate all the play equipment in the park and provide a large lawn area in the middle of the Florida Avenue Park. This creates a dedicated area in the rear for the heritage trees that would be fenced off and unusable. The redesign on this would be a lot shorter because you're essentially removing all the play equipment and just doing a lawn. We think that this can certainly be completed within 2019, and that is an image of providing a great lawn, but you would lose about a third. And so those are just two very conceptual options for council to consider. There are obviously many other options that are available to council. That concludes our staff presentation. Happy to answer any questions that council may have.
Are there any questions of council about the presentation or on the presentation? Irene? No? Michael? No. Okay. Then we will move on to the appellant who's going to be representing. Please. And then, Melissa, you'll time it? We won't start until you're ready.
Karen Cromasini?
No. This is the appellant.
This is the group presentation, a 10-minute presentation.
Okay.
The timer, Melissa?
Right.
Okay. But when you're ready, you let us know.
Sure. Do you know which one it is? Okay.
Hello. Thank you, Mayor Medina and City Council for allowing us time to deliver our appeal. My name is Santha Takahashi. I live in the heart of San Bruno on Carlton Avenue. I hold a BS degree in botany and an MS in systems management. Everyone here tonight wants the Florida Park construction to start this coming spring. We want the park that the community and the city designed together. We want the park that our children can enjoy, we can enjoy, and the park that cherishes and celebrates the two heritage trees that have lived on this land for more than 100 years. These trees predate the incorporation of San Bruno in 1914. Our appeal was filed on behalf of 17 San Bruno residents. Our attorney sent a letter to the city stating our legal arguments. We hope this appeal process will avoid litigation. We maintain that the California Environmental Quality Act, also known as CEQA requirements, have not been met by the city of San Bruno. We are asking the city to follow the law. The staff report confirms the city's intention to not follow CEQA. In this report, 5 revisions were requested by staff. The 5th revision states, and I quote, "Remove existing heritage trees or amend plans for the location and or inclusion of a children's play area." Staff further wrote, and I quote, "Items 1 to 4 are relatively minor to the overall concept and future use of the park. However, item 5 has significant implications on the usability and configuration of the park. Again, the city confirmed item 5 as a significant change and therefore would trigger CEQA. We'd like to give you some background. The city first brought the neighborhood together in June 2016 to design the park. There were a series of meetings. The park was designed around the two historical heritage trees as centerpieces. The city agreed and approved the final design with the heritage trees remaining. This design included a play structure located near the Norfolk Island pine. In August of 2017, the City Council approved a construction contract with Star Construction, Inc. The city decided to terminate the contract in November of 2017. The city has not explained why they terminated the contract. Not until September 19, 2018, did staff bring to the public their safety concerns, more than 2 years after the community and the city first met to design the park. Staff's mistakes have now placed the life of these two 100-year-old trees at risk. The city then offered a design change that fenced the Norfolk Island pine as a precaution. Later, the city rejected their own plan based on cost. We are asking the City Council to honor the original plan from 2017 with both heritage trees included in the Florida Park design. This was agreed upon by the city with the informed knowledge of the residents. This would negate CEQA and further legal action. The city has presented inconsistent arguments against keeping the trees. Michael Stallings, the interim Park and Rec director, told us in June of this year they were diseased. He further stated they would require care and maintenance the city was unwilling to commit to due to cost. The argument the trees are diseased is not credible. I, Santha Takahashi, sent an email to City Manager Jackson questioning the health of the trees. Under pressure, Ms. Jackson stepped back from the city's stance. When KRON 4 reporter Hermila Agawi discussed the cost of maintenance with Ms. Jackson on July 20th of this year, she was told this would not be a reason to cut the trees down. Not until the Parks and Rec Commission meeting on September 19th, 2 months ago, did the city bring safety concerns to the discussion. This brings to question the timing, credibility, and intent of the city's many evolving positions. First, our heritage trees were sick, then too costly to maintain, and now the Norfolk Island pine poses grave safety concerns for our children, and aesthetics of the deodar cedar have been brought into question. The historical trees should not be made to pay for staff's mistakes and ever-changing storylines. Why did the city present 3 separate reasons to cut these heritage trees down? We would like to discuss the safety issue raised by the city. The city maintains the cones from the Norfolk Island pine pose a risk of injury. There are thousands of cone-producing trees in San Bruno. We have them in our parks, on school property, and even over the play structure at 7th Avenue Park. There are hundreds of cones hanging from trees over the 7th Avenue play structure. These trees have been there for decades. There is a cone-producing tree that sits between City Hall and the library where children gather. Tree branches with cones also hang over our athletic fields and our city sidewalks. Longtime San Bruno resident Tony P. lives at 543 Chestnut Avenue. He has a Norfolk Island pine in his front yard. He has never seen a cone fall, and no one has ever been injured. The city is aware of this tree. City staff told Tony there are only 4 such trees like it in San Bruno, and that they can never be cut down. Tony extends an invitation to the City Council to visit him and his tree to learn the facts. We maintain it's far more likely a member of the public could receive injuries from being struck by a vehicle or tripping over broken sidewalks while walking to the park. It's more likely a child could injure themselves falling from the play structure than being struck by a cone. We asked local hospitals for the number of ER visits due to being hit by falling cones. Our inquiries elicited their laughter as they remarked, and I quote, "No one has been struck by a cone." Well, very unlikely, cone injuries have happened. Let me share one of very few examples with you. In 2014, Mr. Mace was injured by a falling bunya pine cone in the San Francisco Maritime National Historical Park. The cones from these trees can weigh as much as 40 pounds. This example has little relevancy when discussing the safety of the trees at Florida Park because the weight of the bunya cone is up to 20 times greater than that of the Norfolk Island pine. Mr. Mays sued the park because it didn't have a warning sign. The park addressed the liability by posting signs warning the public of the unusually large cones and constructing a fence. The tree was not cut down. We now would like to discuss the cost of updating architectural plans. The city indicates changing the plans to move the play structure 8 to 10 feet would cost between $50,000 and $75,000. How can a small change in a small park cost so much? Has the City Council verified these figures other than using staff? Without verification of these figures, how can you, our City Council, make an informed decision? Retired CAD systems administrator with more than 30 years' experience, Charisse Fowler says, moving the play structure would be a simple redesign. Generously speaking, it might take 10 hours to move the play structure and cascade changes throughout all the corresponding sheets, planting plans, landscape layout, sidewalk layout, irrigation area plans, and lighting and electrical plans. I would estimate the billable rate at $150 an hour and a total redesign expense not to exceed a few $1,000s. The city-authored report places of cutting the trees down at $7,000 to $10,000. We can address the public safety and move the play structure for less than the cost of cutting these trees down. In conclusion, we want the neighborhood to be proud of the first city park in the heart of San Bruno. Please honor the community's design. The design the City Council unanimously approved in August of 2017, more than a year ago. The design that leaves the historical deodar cedar and the Norfolk Island pine standing. These trees have many years of life remaining. Norfolk Island pine trees live 150 years or more, and the deodar cedar can live upwards of 1,000 years. These trees stood on this ground before most of our homes. By leaving both our heritage trees, the deodar cedar and the Norfolk Island pine standing, fencing the Norfolk Island pine off, and moving the play structure 8 to 10 feet, we avoid a CEQA violation, we address the city's safety concerns, honor the original design of Florida Park, and provide the most cost-effective solution. This solution unites our community. This is the only solution that pays honor to the city's community outreach efforts and delivers the park we designed together. Please weigh all the facts and options heard tonight carefully. Thank you for your time.
Thank you for that. It did go a little over, but I wanted you to be able to finish up, so thank you very much.
Thank you.
Do we have any questions from council for the appellant? I just had one, if I could. I saw Bay Hill Park. Are we saying Bay Hill Park is in San Bruno?
I didn't mention.
Well, it was, when I saw the video, it said Bay Hill Park. I'm sorry, I'm asking the applicant. The appellant, I'm sorry.
Those were images of trees that have cones on them.
Thank you. Okay, because I was like, okay. We used to work at Parks and Rec, and it was baffling me. So thank you.
Okay.
Is there any questions? No? Okay, so at this point, we're going to go ahead and open up to public comment. And so, how many do we have at this point?
We have 13 speaker cards.
13. Okay. So what Melissa's going to do is she's going to call a couple up at a time just to kind of keep the line going, if that's okay. And so at this point, we're going to do 2 minutes per speaker, please. And then if you could call up a couple so they can get prepared.
First up, Sandra Perez Vargas, followed by Jason Flanders.
Hello. It took us a long time to get here, and I really think we shouldn't be here at all. Tonight, we shouldn't be here having an appeal if the city had done their job correctly. It all started off well with the city working with the residents, and we were all really excited. But somewhere along the way, the designs that were given back to the city were not the ones that were agreed on. And this question has not been answered. Why did we accept something we didn't turn over? If I had received that back, I would say, this is not what I gave you. Go back, redo it. We have to honor what we started with. And that didn't happen. And instead of having that conversation with residents, we're lied to. Connie Jackson, our former manager, literally lied to us, telling us that these were diseased trees. Not only to the residents, she lied to the Parks and Rec. So they were completely convinced that these trees were sick and were a danger. When that was proven not to be true, now it's a safety issue. And it's been one thing or another. It seems like people are just throwing something to see what's going to stick. And right now we're writing out the safety issue. I've driven all over San Bruno. There are pine cones at Cappuccino High School over the tracks. They are 7th Avenue. They're not only hanging, they're literally covering it. I know that the people from the city go out there, the workers, I'm sure they see that, and they've never deemed it a danger. Trick-or-treating the other night, I was in one of the streets by Canes. There was a huge trees with huge pines, and I've never heard of anybody getting hit from them. And quite honestly, the way we've been deceived so far, I'm not convinced that that pine was found on the floor. I'm not convinced of it. It's very easy for somebody to pull it out and say, here, this is what we found, here's your danger. But this is not about that. This is about the city not accepting responsibility for what they've done and not working and being honest with the residents. I think we can do a lot better than this. And you have an opportunity tonight to say, let's correct this. Let's move on. Let's do what's right. Let's be honest with our residents and honor that. You have an opportunity to make things right tonight. And this, not just about these trees. What's going to happen to the trees at the rec center? We hear now that even after the first meeting when we said we don't want any of the redwood trees touched, now I'm hearing they're going to cut them all down to accommodate a new rec center. Other cities work around the trees. They don't cut them down. Thank you.
Thank you. And again, just as a reminder, you'll have lights on the podium, and then when you get to the yellow, you have about 30 seconds left, please.
Jason Flanders, followed by Maureen DiGiancarlo.
Good evening, council members. Jason Flanders from the Aquaterra Aris Law Group here tonight on behalf of Friends of Florida Park in support of the appeal. As the council is aware, anytime the city takes a discretionary action that may result in any change to the physical environment, CEQA review is required. Here, none's occurred, and unfortunately, this project is now unnecessarily vulnerable to legal challenge. The proposal to remove these two heritage trees, as we documented in our letter, clearly does require CEQA review under CEQA's regulations. I also wanted to briefly mention the case of Friends of College of San Mateo Gardens, in which the community college proposed a campus redevelopment project to remove a number of buildings, underwent CEQA review and approved it after the fact. They wanted to remove one additional building and a garden. And the Court of Appeal said new CEQA review is required. This removal of the garden had never previously been considered, and this is a potentially significant impact and a significant change. And here, the proposed removal of these two trees is no different. If the city were to undertake CEQA review of the proposed removal of the two trees, the impact would likely be considered significant, and it would require a thorough review of mitigation measures and alternatives, any of which deemed feasible would have to be adopted to avoid that. So, for example, the mitigation measures proposed by staff today would undergo a more thorough review, and we could perhaps have fencing that doesn't take up 30% of the park, but still prevents any potential dangers from the falling cones. If the 2016 plan were simply modified to add some fencing, signage, or relocate the playground, no CEQA review would be triggered because those changes wouldn't result in any new potentially significant impacts to the environment, just moving pieces around. So in conclusion, there is a simple solution by revising the 2016 plan that doesn't require CEQA review, and the Friends of Florida Park strongly urge the council to adopt that approach. Thank you.
Thank you for keeping to time.
Maureen DeJohn-Cara, followed by Tim O'Brien.
Good evening. Maureen has given me proxy. She is a flight attendant. I have her email, and unfortunately she couldn't be here tonight. And she wanted me to basically speak on her behalf that she definitely opposes the decision of cutting the heritage tree, and she wishes that those trees remain in the site where the new park will go, so she can teach her 10-year-old daughter that San Bruno does respect this tree, and she wants to basically be able to bring her daughter and show her how San Bruno has a heart. So I'm speaking on her behalf. Thank you.
Thank you.
Tim O'Brien, followed by Reina Burgos.
Good evening, Tim O'Brien, Florida Avenue. I have a statement from an arborist. It's about his assessment of the trees, the Norfolk pine especially. This is his exact statement. It is my professional opinion that the Norfolk pine on Florida Avenue is in relatively healthy condition overall. The cones on this tree should be of concern only in extreme wild conditions for dropping. The majority of the cones should break apart at maturity and not pose any potential hazard. My recommendation would be to have the tree fenced off to eliminate any possibilities of cones dropping into an area where humans may be present. And that's his statement. And I have some other comments to make. We need these trees. A lot of things come into play. I mean, they're a necessity for the environment. They're a necessity for wildlife, and they bring ecstatic joy to our community. Especially looking out my front door every morning, walking out, the sun rising behind the trees, or not rising, the sunset. They're beautiful trees, and they've done nothing wrong. They deserve to be there like we do on this earth. Also, we have a school named John Muir in San Bruno. What would John Muir say if he was here today and heard about these trees being cut down? Actually killed, not cut down, killing the trees. They deserve to be here. And he has a quote, "God has cared for these trees, saved the trees from drought, disease, avalanches, and 1,000 tempests and floods. But he cannot save the trees from fools." That's the exact quote from John Muir. Thank you.
Thank you.
Reina Burgos, followed by Jeffrey Tong.
Good evening. Florida Avenue. This is very emotional, and I'm going to stick with facts. Okay, our city manager basically just said that they found a pine cone that he actually showed you. But I'm actually going to quote what the arborist said, that he had to climb up all the way up to the tree to remove the pine cone you demonstrated. So that pine cone, pine was not found on the ground. And that's a fact. Secondly, I was walking Bruno and Bowie this evening, and I totally quote the video. There are pine cones, there are trees all over the city. We're not suggesting that the city go and cut every single tree that produces cones. What we're saying is, if you're going to raise the issue of safety, why not raise it in this other location? Why have to be targeted at Florida Park? You need to respect the final plan that community and the city council approved. You need to unite us. You also have said that we have delayed the park. This is ludicrous. We have not delayed the park. We have not delayed it. So I'm asking you, please honor the original plan that was designed by both the community and the city. Thank you.
Thank you.
Jeffrey Tong, followed by Karen Cromasini.
Honorable Mayor, City Council members, Jeffrey Tong from Fleetwood. I'm here to appeal that the City Council consider Is this on? I'm here to appeal that the City Council consider alternative design number 1 and a portion of alternative design number 2. Specifically, alternative number 1, reduce the Great Lawn area. Alternative number 2, move or eliminate the play equipment. And 3, make Florida Street Park more than a jungle gym, make it a nature discovery park for both children and adults. Qualify it as a wildlife habitat by providing food, water, nesting area, shelter for wildlife, and certify it as a national wildlife habitat. Ecological benefits are nurturing wildlife nurtures ourselves. It increases diversity, biodiversity, and educational benefits. Children need to play with soil, water, and plants. It reconnects them with the earth. And economic benefits. The National Association of Realtors say homes are worth 5% more when near a park. But earning the National Wildlife Federation certified community wildlife habitat designation will give the city of San Bruno national recognition and the unique distinction of being the only community wildlife habitat in Northern California. With regards to the heritage trees, do you agree that senior citizens are to be respected? Old people may not be pretty or look symmetrical, but should that justify killing them? Likewise for all flora and fauna. Thank you.
Thank you.
Karen Cromasini, followed by Stephen Seymour.
Good evening. I don't know. Good evening, Mayor and Council. I would just like to say, here it says, city with a heart. Well, I don't think that city has a heart, and when we have to cut down the trees just for somebody does not like them, or there is just, those trees are meaning a lot to people, and thinking of the next generation, to have them around. And we're losing a lot of trees through disaster or natural disaster and everything, and then we just go ahead and cut down trees for a reason. Like I say, we could move the playground away from it just to be safe, and that would be you can plant underneath the trees, you can make a nice other plants to enjoy people. And I just have to say this, that that those trees are beautiful, and I love nature, and we should really not cut it down. Okay, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Stephen Seymour, followed by Russell Steins.
we get to the main page?
X up in the right-hand corner.
Up here?
Yep.
Over? Yeah, it's a video, yeah. With sound, yes. I can't see.
What are you looking for?
Do you see is that it?
Yeah, that's a keypad.
Okay.
I'll get it.
You got it.
For as long as anyone can remember, this lot at Florida and Taylor Avenues in San Bruno had a large, old, abandoned house on it. Neighbors say it got to be an eyesore.
It was very prehistoric looking, and it was graffitied on, junk was thrown in there.
The city took possession of the property and plans to build a new park. But so far, the only thing that looks park-like here are the 2 trees at the back of the lot. And that's ironic because one landscaping plan calls for the 2 trees to be chopped down.
I didn't understand why they would have to knock down some heritage trees to build a park when you typically go to parks to enjoy the shade of a tree.
Yeah, that was funny because the park is a tree, and those are beautiful trees.
It's unclear how old the trees actually are. Some say 70, some say 100 years old. No one at City Hall was available to speak with us, but neighbors have reportedly gotten emails explaining the trees are in an area where a children's play structure is planned. But neighbor Maureen Diuncada says the trees are landmarks to the area, and the plans ought to be adjusted.
If they were like in the middle of it, maybe I could see a point, but I can't imagine that they can't work around it.
Thomas Garola grew up in a house across the street and remembers watching the crows fly in and out of the branches. He believes the trees are as much a part of San Bruno's heritage as any of the historic homes that have been preserved.
These pine cones I found all over. The city's full of pine cone producing trees. These were lying on the tracks at the high school. What you were asking about earlier, if you walk up San Bruno Avenue to Molly Stones, you're going to walk under trees that have hundreds and hundreds of pine cones on them. They exist all over our city, and these can weigh a pound, pound and a half. I want to show you how the pine cone from the tree falls. These are the needles. These are the needles from the Norfolk Island pine, and this is how the pine cones normally fall. And this is how I picked all of these up at the gentleman's house on Chestnut, who's invited you over so you could see his tree. He's never seen a pine cone on the ground. I'll pick this up when we're done. But
I wasn't going to ask that question. Thank you.
Russell
Mr.
Steins, followed by Mickey Lavelle.
Sorry for the mess, Russell.
Good evening, Council and Mr. Mayor, Russell Steins. It's unfortunate to see that we've gotten to this point. This may be a very valuable lesson for us all. I believe that our city asked this community to help design a park, and they did, and everyone was happy. Unfortunately, due to lack of transparency and the mistake of the architect we hired, it has separated our neighbors. When I left the Park and Rec meeting, I was convinced that the big pine was a safety concern and should be removed, and I thought that the city had made the wrong decision on the other tree because it was ugly. But because my neighbors were at such odds, I decided to do a little more research. So I went home and I typed in, what are the odds of a pine cone hitting a person? And to my surprise, I had a better chance of hitting the lottery. This being said, however this works out, I ask our new city manager from this day forward for total transparency and for his commitment to work and protect our community, and to make sure when we do a study on trees, parks, buildings, infrastructure, parking, and etc., that we get an unbiased opinion, an unbiased report. This is not easy to do. Example, if I'm selling a home, the home inspector will write a favorable report. And if I'm buying that same home, the same home inspector will write an unfavorable report. So please, Jovan, I ask you with consciousness, we truly need your honesty. This cannot be meet the new boss, same as the old boss. It appears to this resident that the architect made a mistake and should correct it at their own expense, as in any business in the private sector would do. Otherwise, it'd be faced with a lawsuit. And to our city council, please remember the true experts of this community are your neighbors, and that reports can be compromised depending on which way one wants them to be. So please, everyone, don't ever let this happen again. Tonight, City Council, you choose between life and death. I hope you will choose life. Thank you kindly.
Thank you, Mr. Steins.
Mickey Lavelle, followed by Andy Mason.
Good evening, everybody, friends, council people. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. I raised my family. I bought my house here in San Bruno in 1979. I lived up in the Rolling Wood. And, well, I was in the Boy Scouts with my son. I was one of the leaders. We have a great conservation ethic there. And I get this feeling about the ethics of, well, including that CEQA, going with the law. And I know I'm, as a retired firefighter in San Francisco, I fought fires in San Francisco's Golden Gate Park, Crown fires, with just one single engine company. But so I've saved trees, but along with my Boy Scout troop, I was a troop leader. We planted acorns from some of the oak trees in the neighborhood, and I just want you to know that my heart is in this, saving these 2 trees. I took garden construction know-how at City College, horticulture major, and also a fire science major. So I procrastinated long, and I don't have a degree in either of these subjects, but I have a lot of knowledge, and I just don't see how they would plan on cutting the roots of these trees. I got to consult with my teachers who are still there at City College. I know I have 10 seconds, and I just want to thank you that you can feel my passion. If you can't hear my adrenaline going, I know. Thank you.
Thank you.
Andy Mason, followed by Adam Cozzetti.
Hello, Honorable Mayor and City Council. I have 3 main points. Andy Mason, Cherry Avenue. 3 main points. There may be an opportunity and a need to revisit and revise our heritage tree ordinance here in the city with a more ecological mindset. I think San Bruno has a lot of beautiful coastal live oaks, a lot of kind of habitat which are in medians, easements with the city. That all should be protected. There's also, we could expand the species. There's manzanitas, there's chaparral, a number of coastal live oaks. Number 2, the Parks and Rec Commission, I know our colleagues are here tonight, could host a really value-added heritage tree ordinance policy revision study session. We could bring in the community, we could bring in guest speakers. Let's make this an inclusive, larger tree policy. And furthermore, we could also partner better with the county and regional open parks districts. So we're not just talking about one tree and one pine cone, but actually groves of trees and habitat. So thank you.
Thank you.
Adam Cozzetti, followed by Victoria Bishop.
Hello, my name is Adam Cozzetti, and I have lived in San Bruno for about 4.5 years. I would like to just put in a word in favor of keeping both heritage trees. That's great that new trees are going to be planted on the park site, but if we were to cut down the existing ones, then we would have to wait many years before we could have mature trees for us to enjoy. I'm also a member of the Sierra Club, and the local club chapter's conservation committee has written a letter urging the city to preserve the trees for their environmental benefits. But really, I think the best reason for keeping the trees is just that so many people love these trees so much. We're building a new park, and we want it to be an asset for the neighborhood and the entire city, and it should be something we can all be proud of, which I think having these 100-year-old trees helps a lot with. Keeping the trees is going to make the park more successful. People will appreciate the park more and take better care of it. And so I know you have a few options in front of you, but I hope you can find some way to preserve these 2 heritage trees. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Victoria Bishop.
Good evening. My name is Victoria Bishop. I've been living in San Bruno
for about 3 years. It is my strong belief that these heritage trees should remain as part of the new park plan. Trees not only provide shade and oxygen, but also promote mental health. Studies have shown that being around trees and nature can reduce stress and benefit child development and learning. As an individual with an accreditation in environmental design, sorry guys, I'm nervous, I've encountered countless examples of existing trees successfully incorporated into innovative outdoor designs. Furthermore, in a world of pollution, cars, and roadside litter, trees such as these are few and far between. I believe they should be cherished and celebrated rather than condemned. It is our job to move forward and not to erase what over 100 years of nature has accomplished. I urge the City Council to relocate the play structure and please save these beautiful trees. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. Yes. Last speaker.
Thank you. I'll be very quick. My name is Callista, and thank you, Mayor and council members. I wrote to you each, I believe at least twice, on this matter. And I just feel compelled, in addition to many valid points that our neighbors have brought up, I just want to talk on behalf of what everyone is calling our ugly tree and just stop that, because the cedar is actually one of the most beautiful trees on that park. Its unusual silhouette is extremely valuable. I believe someone in the neighborhood called it landmark. It's as much of a silhouette to the skyline, and I really believe that its unusual shape makes it even that much more dear. I don't want to go too far down, this road of let's value old people and how we all identify with trees, but truly speaking, the only thing that I cringed about tonight was the comments, and perhaps they were just offhand, that one of the trees was more beautiful and the other one wasn't. And I think we all know that the Charlie Brown tree was actually the most precious of all, and united the community. Is just both of them are lovely. Please do take into account sincerely the appeal. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so we're going to bring it back to council and staff. Is there anything that needs to be finalized or updated? Comments?
Sure. City Council, I do think that there are a couple things. I would like, if council is amenable, to invite the arborist up to discuss the difference between a more typical pine cone that was shown in the images of other parks, and that's on the dais, and the difference between these cones, because there is a very distinct difference. And to discuss the fall zone size for the Norfolk Island pine. In addition, I do think that it's appropriate to hear from the city attorney about the CEQA issue and about potential liability.
Who council?
That's amenable, I guess.
Yes. Yes.
Arborist Kevin Kilty.
Council, I am Kevin Kilty, Kilty Arborist Services, and I was one of the two arborists hired for the project to review the trees on the site. So, about the cones, the one thing we must know about this is, even though the common name is Norfolk Island pine, it is not a pine tree. And it has, their cones are nowhere near the same as a pine. Neither is the attachment of the cones. I trimmed trees for close to 40 years. The pine cones are really hard to get off a tree. I mean, you hack away at them, you cut them, you just can't remove them. Whereas the Araucaria species is what this Norfolk Island pine is. They're a native to the South Pacific, their cones tend to roll out of the tree. So to get a couple of the cones on the ground, I threw a line up in the tree and just pulled them out. So they released much easier than what like a Monterey pine cone would be. And the woman that said something about the Bunya pine cone that was 40 pounds, I've seen them up to 14 pounds. I haven't seen any 40 pounds. But when they fall, there's no warning. They just hit the ground and shatter. These with the Norfolk Island pine, generally when the cones fall, the gentleman that had these was correct. Generally when the cones fall, it's because the squirrels have gotten impatient and they've chewed the limbs, the ends of the limbs off. They'd rather work on the pine cones on the seed pods on the ground rather than up in the tree. So that's when a lot of your cone failure on this species happens. So it's not totally common, but it does happen. And
in the diameter for the fall zone?
Oh, the fall zone. The fall zone should be out at least. These seed pods are out on the ends of the limbs, the very ends of the limbs. And the seed pods, as they fall, like I said, they tend to tumble. So the exclusion zone should be at the drip line plus about 10 feet more. So I think we had a crown spread on the cedar. I mean on the Canary Island pine of, it was, I think, total crown spread of the crown spread's about 45 feet. So the radius should be 25 feet, 30 feet out from the trunk of the tree would get us right about at the edge of the drip line of the tree. So I would say we've seen it done in parks that have had the araucarias. Central Park has a big araucaria tree, and it's in a lawn area, rarely used. They don't have it fenced off until the seed pod or the pods are noticed, and then they put signage up. Moving the play structure is an option. I definitely would not locate the play structure beneath the tree, and the foundation for the play structure would cause pretty good root damage to this tree. This tree being mature may not respond too well to that root damage. So.
While we have the arborist, is there a question from council? No. Michael.
So I heard that in one of the arborist reports it said that the trees were viable, but they would require some proper care. And I was just wondering what proper care would entail and what the relative cost of that care would be compared to other trees that we have in the city.
Well, that is true. The deodar cedar, since it's been topped and has that disfigured trunk formation, what happens when you top a tree, it's just like when you prune your hedge, it gets wider if you take the top off. Well, trees work the same way. So the fact that it's topped, you have heavier lateral limbs. When the tree was recently cleaned up, those limbs were brought in, and it is safer now. They would probably have to be trimmed every 3 to 5 years to improve the safety of the tree. You're looking at a tree like that, maybe $1,000 to $1,500 to have it thoroughly trimmed. The araucaria, the Norfolk Island pine, they have a tendency to get mealybug, which is an insect much like aphids excretes tremendous amounts of honeydew. That would require an aerial spraying of the tree probably a couple times in the summer. It possibly could be cleaned up by a soil injection in the winter. Again, you're looking at, could be up to $500 a year in pest control costs. As far as the cones or the trimming of the tree, they don't generally need a lot of trimming. That one appears to have had the top taken off at some point, so again, you're going to get a longer lateral limb than normal, and if limb breakage became a factor, then it would have to be trimmed out.
And because they've been topped, would we expect that they would be any taller than they are now, or would they stay about the same height?
They're probably going to grow in height probably 18 inches to 3 feet a year, both species. So that isn't a critical part. Mainly the limb lengthening would be the critical part of that.
Okay. And I don't know if this one is for you or for staff, but I believe the roots of the Norfolk pine are kind of underneath the fence of the property line. And I'm wondering if that fence is going to cause any damage at some point, or is there any plan to remediate the damage to the fence as part of the...
Yeah, the fence is being lifted. The fence won't hurt the tree, but the tree will will eventually destroy that fence. It's a wood fence. It's not a tremendous cost to replace the fence boards, or depending. I don't know if there's a plan for a better fence in that for that property. There is a possibility of root damage to that neighboring house. That house is fairly old, and as we stated in the reports, the surface roots on that Canary Island pine are quite large. There's roots up to 15 inches in diameter coming off that tree. So there is a possibility that house has already been damaged or compromised, and every year that possibility gets greater.
Okay.
As roots expand.
Thank you.
Irene or Laura, you have questions of the arborist?
No, I don't.
No? Okay, thank you, Kevin. And if we need you, we'll call you back up.
Okay, great.
Thank you. And then City Attorney, regarding the legal question.
Yes, just a couple of brief comments. I think there were two issues raised, one of them having to do with CEQA, and the second one having to do with city's potential liability. And I think we've heard a number of things about liability, in fact, even from the arborist apparently retained by the appellants, recommending that there be a exclusion zone around the tree. I think that appears to be an acknowledgement of the fact that these cones can fall, and that, as our arborist indicated, if they do fall, there's a serious risk of either a serious injury or death. And I think it's difficult for the City Council, would be difficult to ignore information on both sides that indicates that the falling cones from that tree are not a liability hazard. And so if the tree is to be retained, then we would certainly recommend that there be an exclusion zone around the tree, as recommended by our arborist. There was a point made about, there's pine cones falling from other trees. That may be true, except we don't have a report from all of our other pine trees that say that those cones are likely to cause serious injury or death. But we do in this case, and it's would be difficult for the city, I think, to ignore that. I doubt that anybody here would volunteer to stand under one of those cones were it dropped on them from 50 feet. With respect to the CEQA issue, we heard a number of points that were made. I think what we didn't hear is that there's anything other than a common sense exemption for one or two trees under CEQA. I think the cases that Mr. Flanders cited have to do with multiple dozens, if not hundreds of trees. And in this case, we disagree with his analysis. Be that as it may, if the city were to cut the trees, the city would perform whatever CEQA analysis is required, and I think we've indicated we would do that. So if you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions of the city attorney? Irene?
Through the chair, now I'm a little confused. So, by and large, if we cut the 2 trees down, there is no violation of CEQA because they're minor, in the grander scheme of things, it's a minor alteration of the plans, especially since we are planning on adding 12 to 15 trees. Is that?
If the city were to determine to remove one or both trees, we would file the appropriate CEQA document as required by CEQA to determine that there's an exemption for either one or both of those trees on a number of different bases.
Okay, thank you.
Laura, anything for the attorney?
No.
Okay. Anything else, staff? Okay, so I'll bring it back to the council for additional questions, comments, discussion.
I do want to go because...
Irene?
Thank you. I've heard a lot of accusations and bad feelings from the public about the city wasn't transparent, or we're going to go back on our word, or we accepted something and we should keep that, what we accepted, and if we do that, I mean, all these different things. Several of us went to the different meetings, the public meetings, talking about the Florida Park and asking for public input. Many of the people here who are talking about it now were never at those meetings. And some of you were, but most of you weren't. So for you to talk as though you were part of that and to say you know what your neighbors want, I think is slightly misleading. We have several emails we've received several emails from people who say things like, be strong, do the right thing, you were all good people, cut the trees down and do the park. So, you know, this is not something that should divide the city. Let me start way back. I used to live on Fifth Avenue in the avenues, and I used to go to swimming lessons at our city park, and I would walk through and around that site for years, and with my bicycle and all those things. I've lived in San Bruno for 66 years. And many of those years, when it was basically abandoned, I thought that would be a great place to have a park. Even when I was a little kid, I thought that would be a great place to have a park. So when I got to be on the council, and I heard that the people who owned the place were looking to sell it, I suggested and encouraged this council and the city manager to purchase that land because I thought it would be a great park. There's nothing much down in that area. And that's where it all started. So that was that piece. The city put a lot of money into it. We really want to have a park down there. And we want the kids to have a place to play, not just to sit on the grass and look at 2 trees, to really have a place to run around and play on equipment and, you know, have a picnic with their friends and family and do all those things they really can't do easily at that area. So let me go back. I'm sorry this is long, but this has been a long time coming. So, and I'm sorry, was it you, Rico, or was it Michael, or both of us? That we went to the public meetings.
I did.
And you went to different ones.
And he was a commissioner.
Oh,
he was in the Park and Rec Commission then, so he did.
So, okay. So people are saying, well, that we should adhere to the plan that the people approved. And when I was there, the plan was people put in what they wanted. They said, we want play equipment. We want a place to have a picnic. We want a place to play ball. We don't want a restroom because we don't want people to hang out there and use it. We don't want homeless people. We don't want short bushes that people can hide behind. So they did a laundry list of things they wanted. They said they wanted trees. Not one person that I remember, and you guys can correct me if I'm wrong, said, we want to keep those 2 trees.
Folks, please, everybody gets to be heard, and this is the council member's opportunity.
Thank you. Okay, so the architect put all those things together and showed us several alternatives. And we moved things around, and people said what they said, and we got the plan. Okay. This plan includes a play structure. It includes picnic area, thank you. It includes adult equipment, exercise equipment. If we keep the trees and do the whatever they called it, blocking off and thing, then you get none of those things. There's nothing there except lawn. How is that following what the neighbors said they wanted? It's not at all. It has just 2 trees. Excuse me.
Ma'am, please. Everybody should have, ma'am, everybody gets the same respect and courtesy to be heard. So please.
Okay. So to me, if we don't cut the trees and we leave them there and we do this thing that we are blocking the trees off and just have lawn, that's not abiding by what I heard, at least, at the different meetings. If we do the alternate and we move the play equipment, that eliminates a lot of other things that people said that they wanted. So that's that. I'm just putting that aside. I heard a lot of people talk about trees and how important they are. This council has supported planting street trees. They supported me in 2014 when I spearheaded planting 100 street trees. I had to fight, and the beautification task force members that I lead, we had to go knock on over 1,000 doors in this city to get people to agree to a street tree. That's how valued street trees are in here. And I'm the person who started the city tree not organization, but that San Bruno became a city tree, U.S. cities, I can't remember what it's called, but it's part of the organization where the city has to plant so many trees a year. They have to have a urban forest reforesting plan. They have to do all these different things. And we've been doing that since 2005, I think. It may even be earlier. I did that. This council supported me on that. The previous council supported me on that. We have Arbor Day. We don't do it on Arbor Day because that's not a good day to plant trees, but we go out and plant trees. The beautification task force members go out and plant trees. We get the Boy Scouts to help us plant trees. So this council, the previous council, I personally have planted with these hands and dug holes many trees. So anyway, I resent people saying things about us that aren't true, and I apologize that if you think I am saying an untruth, I don't believe I am. So.
Michael, Laura, do you have any comments, questions? All right, Laura?
So first of all, I want to say that I thank you for coming out tonight and voicing your concerns and your comments and your opinions. I think as Councilmember O'Connell mentioned, that we do get emails and communication from residents. I didn't realize how much as a council person, but it's an ongoing. And the communication regarding Florida Park has been going on for months. Not just tonight, not just in the last couple weeks, but we've been getting a lot of communication for a number of months on this project. I take the decision serious, and I don't just, look at it based on dollars and make best sense of it. I take offense to comments that have been made when I hear things about whether we're being honest, whether that we're getting the real story, whether a report that we receive from an arborist is true, or the report we receive from staff is true. And I think that that's not a fair statement. And we as a council appreciate the staff that we have on site today, and we appreciate the effort that they put into getting us the facts as the way they are. You know, nowadays when you want to do anything, it costs you an arm and a leg. Not necessarily an arm and a leg, but it costs you a lot of money. Is the cost $50,000? Well, number one, it's an estimated cost. It's not an exact cost. But is it expensive to make any changes to that park by moving a playground? Yes, it is. Have we spent a ton of money on this site already? Yes, we have. You know, we care about our entire city. We care about our residents. If I drove through the city of San Bruno, which I do on a regular basis in many different areas, and I look at a park that exists today, and there are trees with pine cones. In hindsight, should we have planted that tree so next to the playground? No, we shouldn't have. But knowing what we're doing today in the design of a park, you need to make choices that are the best decision going forward, and a decision that is based on the safety and the well-being of our children. There's not a single kid that you want to put in a playground next to a tree dropping pine cones, sap, whatever it is, into the playground. You want to make sure your kids are free, right? You don't want them stepping, because what are they doing at the park when I saw them on Saturday? They're running around with their no shoes on. What happened to their shoes? I can't remember where my son put his shoes or his socks after a party. They're always off. So I want to make sure that parks are safe, and I want to make sure that the kids are safe in the playground. And I think, like Irene said, you know, I was part of this process, as well as Councilmember Salazar, involved in the discussions and the feedback regarding what parents and what children actually wanted of this park. We had a few kids that showed up to some of these meetings. And the park that's been designed at Florida Park is a beautiful park. It comes with a lot of great amenities and things that I think make the Florida Park an ideal situation. Am I really depressed and broken up and frustrated by the process? I'm all of that, right? In hindsight, looking back, did we make mistakes? We probably did. And I'm sorry you felt like it wasn't transparent or that mistakes were made. But we all make mistakes. I'm not perfect, and I know we as staff members are not perfect. But we're here today. We're here today to move forward. You know, when I looked around at staff and the family and friends at the Earl and Glenview opening, I thought, Jesus, we should be doing this for Florida Park. We should be doing this. This is long way overdue. We want that beautiful park. As a Park and Rec Commissioner, when I sat there and we looked at plans and we looked at designs and we heard the feedback, I'm excited about that park. Like Irene said, that part of the neighborhood needs something. It needs to be livened up. And we need to make it the best beautiful park that it can be. And we can do that with the design of the park the way it is. I'm sorry if I don't agree with your comments, or if I disagree with your comments, or if I agree with your comments, but I make a choice based on a lot of information that you don't necessarily have readily at your fingertips, but based on factual information. And the facts that stand are very simple. The Norfolk Island pine tree does need to come down for the simple fact that it is a tree that is of danger. The cedar tree, and both trees, by the way, are beautiful in their design. They're beautiful. I mean, I would love to have these trees and more of these trees in our town. But unfortunately, some of the trees provide something that is not adequate for this park. And so I'll continue to hear other comments, but I just want to make sure that you know that decisions made here are not easy, and they're not made quickly, and they're made with full thought and full process. And those are my comments.
Michael? You're welcome, sir.
So 4 years ago, when Irene brought this idea to the council, I was on the council 4 years ago, and I, for one, was against the idea of buying this property for a number of reasons, financial reasons, and just I didn't feel that it was the right priority for the city at the time, but the rest of the council prevailed, and they said, no, we need this property. It's a once-in-a-lifetime opportunity, and we need to build this park. So once the decision was made, I, of course, embraced it wholeheartedly and decided, I would support it any way I could. But I never imagined that one of the issues that this park would develop is the amount of infighting in the neighborhood that has been caused over these trees. And I know a lot of it was caused by the city and the way we handled it. Like my colleagues, I can't help but be offended being the target of accusations. But I can say that I definitely believe that there was never ill intent in anything, and maybe some messages weren't delivered correctly. Maybe there was conflicting comments that were made, but I doubt that it was ever anyone's intent on the city's part to mislead the public or to try to hide something. And I am sorry that it ended up being perceived that way. But both as a council member and a Park and Rec commissioner, and again as a council member, I know that it's always been our intent to represent the wishes of the community. Alex Melendrez, who's here, and we were on the subcommittee, and we oversaw the community outreach related to the park. And I know that there was some fighting even then, whether we should let dogs in the park or what amenities are more important. But we worked through those things, and there were some strong opinions. We listened to everything, and in the end, I believe we presented some designs that were the result of that collaboration, bringing the community together, and our consultants that we brought in to work on the park, and the city staff at the time. And again, I know that there are some very strong opinions around these trees, and like Laura said, I appreciate everybody who's been not only here tonight, but at every Park and Rec Commission meeting. They were there at the park to hear the updates, and I appreciate the passion and all the work that you guys have put into it. But again, it's really disheartening that it's come to an issue that's just so divisive in the community. And I'm not thoroughly convinced that these cones are an immediate hazard. Like one of the speakers said, the likelihood of being hit by a cone is pretty unlikely. But I do know that where I work, there are a number of redwood trees, and they drop big pine cones, and cars get hit by them. So the more time you spent underneath one of these things, and you have squirrels running around, they do come down. And I don't know that we want to have the exposure, no matter how remote that could be. But if kids do spend a lot of time in that park underneath a tree that could potentially drop something, I can see where maybe the likelihood of that happening is more. I never really thought much about the trees when we were talking about the designs and all the amenities that we wanted to put in there. I know that we knew they were there. When we started talking about this, there was still a house there too, and it was actually a really interesting house. It had some very interesting architecture, even that was falling apart, but we had to get rid of that for safety reasons. And that was unfortunate as well. It would have been nice to preserve it. It had some historical value. But in the end, I'm really thinking that the optimal design for this park is going to come from having a clean slate and putting things where they belong, and just making this the best park that we're able to design for the community. Like Laura mentioned, when we had the ribbon cutting at the Glenview Park, it was just amazing to see the people that showed up and how they just took to that park. And we had some designs that came in. We went through a number of different designs, the same process there. There were issues there. Some people wanted one thing, other people wanted something different, but we worked it out. And in the end, it's a huge asset to that neighborhood. I know this park is going to be a huge asset to this neighborhood, and I really want to see, like I said, just the best park that we can build. And if it means that a couple of trees have to go to make room for this design. I know that we're gonna have a number of new trees that are gonna come in. The park is gonna be beautiful. It's gonna provide a habitat for the wildlife. It's gonna provide clean air, a beautiful place for people to hang out, to take their children to play. And with that, I mean, I think I'm leaning toward following staff's recommendation.
I won't take a long time to echo everything, but I was with Councilmember Salazar when I voted against purchasing the park. And it was looking at economics, taking the Park and Lieu fund that was there and wiping it out. So again, it's always looking at global, but again, it was taking all of the money out of the Park and Lieu fee, and then it was the abatement, and then it was that. So I was thinking, okay, how are we going to pay for that? And then you have to have the maintenance, right? When we have something new, we want to keep it appropriate, even with people willing to adopt the park and stuff like that. So when Mr. Ruane, former mayor, asked me to be on the subcommittee, I kind of asked him, like, why would you ask me, somebody who voted against it? And he just said, you've had Park and Rec background, you've worked the staff, you've been on the commission. And so I said, well, then Irene and I will be on the subcommittee and do our best job to make it the best park in this town. Because this is what the majority of the council wanted, and that's how it works up here. So with that said, I know for a fact, when being at those meetings, it was assumed that those trees would remain. That's just a fact. I was there. And I understand that, as Michael said, but you had the house there, and then when things start to, now all of a sudden we had a design problem. We had to get a new firm in there. I think one thing that I do appreciate is that Javon, the new city manager, and I and Raina and Tim sat down soon into his term with us to understand the email you sent, to say, where are we at? Help me understand what's been said, what's going on, and what's going to happen. And at that meeting at City Hall, there was that commitment to say, all right, let's get facts. Let's get independent arborists, which they did. Now, you may say that Kevin is not being honest. I don't know. I'm not going to doubt his credentials, and I'm not going to doubt what he does for a living, because obviously I don't do it. What I am concerned about is any time I sit up here and the city is noted as far as having a safety element or concern, and I don't know, death seems a little, I know it's your report and I just said I wasn't going to challenge that, but death seems a little much, but let's just say injury. And I know the question is, well, has that ever happened? In my tenure up here, there have been 2 incidences where trees damaged vehicle or life, and the city got a claim. Bottom line. There's a lot of eucalyptus down here on Crystal Springs Road that got removed. A lot of them. Because they went by because of that, and then they had to assess each eucalyptus, and then if there was a determination made, because you couldn't have that happen again. I mean, one big limb fell on a car in the lot. One hit a young person. So those are the things that I do worry about up here in the bigger picture, because just as if it was my property, if I'm told that this is going to be unsafe, I have to correct it or eliminate it, because I can't take that chance that whether I sit up here or I'm no longer here, and then it happens, and they come back and they say, you were told, you knew it. So the only alternative would be is to put a barrier around it to make it safe. In all honesty, I know some people say, we just put a sign. Well, don't tell me that a parent who loves her child and says, my child doesn't read, how do you expect my child to know that? And then something happens. I just think about maybe the worst in a wrong way, but I want to make sure the community and the neighborhood and the children are safe. So my concern is with the pine, honestly, because I don't think we should diminish the park. That is where I saw the enthusiasm, and Michael was right. The dog question, I think, absorbed a half of one meeting, just about whether to let a dog walk through that park or not. In the end, we got somewhere with it, but we kind of had to come back and say, okay, we're not going to go down that path again. We got to think about the bigger picture. And there was the enthusiasm and the excitement. I heard it and I saw it. And again, as I've told stories, I'm going to told Raina, is like, you know, in my days when I was a kid, I thought the place was haunted. So that's what I thought that house was. And so to see it come down, I think the council also felt, I will say, that they didn't want to have development for more housing or facilities, which means more cars. So it was another option to also have open space, and that was it was a lifetime opportunity. In retrospect, even though it's been a battle and a challenge in economics, I think it was a good call, and I think it will be good for the neighborhood. So those are my thoughts. So we're back to council for what we have here is we have an appeal. So if you upholding the appeal would mean keeping the trees. Denying the appeal would mean to remove the trees. Of course, there's two alternatives also that staff has put forth. So, or if council has other suggestions. Irene.
I move that we deny the appeal and leave the original park design as it is.
So there's been a motion made to deny the appeal. Is there a second to the motion?
I'll second that.
There's a motion made and a second to deny the appeal. All those in, I'm sorry. City
Can I
Manager.
just ask council to clarify for the record, you said deny the appeal and leave the original design as is with the removal of the two trees, correct?
Sorry.
You're correct.
Irene?
Yes, with the removal of the two trees.
Okay. So let's restate the motion, or we'll get the motion in a second if I have it, and I'll ask the clerk to clarify.
I move to deny the appeal and accept staff's recommendation to remove the two trees.
Is that help with the second?
And I will second that.
Okay. Is that
Councilmember O'Connell?
Aye.
Councilmember Salazar?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Davis?
Aye.
Mayor Medina?
Aye. Okay. And I'm sorry that I think you are right in the sense that it could be done better and communicated better, and I think the city manager and staff is working on that to do just that. So I'm sorry that we had to get to this point, and I'm sorry that it wasn't smoother, but I do hope that we'll have the joy of the park when we're all there to celebrate in its opening. And now Mr. Marty Medina is rejoining us.
Item 6C, adopt resolution upholding the decision to remove a sycamore tree from city right-of-way on the sidewalk near 537 Hazel Avenue and direct staff to plant a replacement tree.
Should I worry about taking it off? I don't know what this needs, but it was 94 signatures to keep the trees.
Thank you, Steve. Thank you.
Good evening, Honorable Mayor and members of the City Council. My name is Joanne Magrini, and I'm the Community Services Director. I'm here tonight to present regarding staff's recommendation of the removal of a street tree at 537 Hazel Avenue. This is an appeal of a city staff decision to remove a sycamore tree that is causing a potential safety hazard near 537 Hazel Avenue. Despite periodic pruning by PG&E, the tree continues to overgrow into nearby power lines, and as a result of the pruning, its canopy is blocking the illumination of the nearby street light, creating a potential safety hazard for pedestrians and residents. Staff mailed a notice of tree removal to adjacent residents on Hazel Avenue. The letter notified residents that they could appeal the decision within 10 days. On October 22, 2018, staff received 3 letters from residents appealing the decision. The London plane, commonly referred to as a sycamore tree at 537 Hazel Avenue, was planted over 19 years ago as a street tree in the planting strip between the street and the sidewalk next to a PG&E power pole and street light. The distance between the tree and the pole is approximately 2.5 to 3 feet. Because the tree sits directly under power lines, PG&E is required to prune within 2 feet below the lines before city staff can prune the tree further. Sorry, I'm one slide ahead. As a result of multiple outings to top the tree, the spread of the tree has become vast. This outward growth has directly impacted the diminished illumination of the street light at night, thus posing a potential safety hazard. In December 2017, the Community Services Department received an email from the resident of 533 Hazel Avenue requesting the tree's removal. The resident indicated the tree growth blocked the illumination of the street light directly next to the tree and also dropped many leaves onto the large portion of the pedestrian sidewalk. The resident explained that her mother had slipped and fallen, breaking her wrist 2 years prior due to the large amount of leaves and lack of light at night. The resident then indicated that her mother had more recently tripped again within the week and requested the tree be removed considering it posed a potential safety hazard. Staff determined that the tree would need to be removed and replaced with a smaller tree. The frequent topping of the tree had caused it to spread, thus obscuring illumination from the street light and making it difficult to see at night for residents using the sidewalk. It is important to note our management of urban reforestation improves our environment and the long-term sustainability of the city's urban forest. The existing tree in its current location and given its shape and size creates several maintenance issues in addition to the safety concerns already noted. The trunk of the tree has grown to its maximum at the base, and further growth will cause the sidewalk, curb, and street to be compromised, creating a potential tripping hazard. A portion of the sidewalk was replaced in April of 2017. The tree requires frequent pruning to maintain the intended illumination from the street light. The rotation for the next regular pruning on Hazel Avenue will occur in fiscal year 2020-2021. Given its growth pattern, the staff estimates the tree would need pruning every year instead of every 4 years. Even if the current tree were maintained for the next few years, it would eventually need to be removed, either because of its unsustainable maintenance requirements or because it creates a tripping hazard on the sidewalk. Staff consulted with an independent arborist who examined the tree and recommends that it be removed. He said that the tree is poorly located. He agreed that it would be cost prohibitive to try and maintain the needed servicing and maintenance of the sycamore due to the annual pruning required. He recommends that the tree be replaced with a smaller one, such as a western redbud, as suggested by staff. The replacement tree will grow to approximately 15 feet in height with a maximum spread of 10 feet. Removal of the sycamore will be performed by PG&E at no cost. The approximate fee for the replacement redbud is $55, which is covered by the Parks Maintenance fiscal year 2018-19 operating budget. The planting of the new tree will be performed by city staff within 1 week of the removal. There are two potential options moving forward. City Council can direct staff to obtain more additional information and continue the appeal, or uphold the appeal and direct staff to return with a resolution supporting that action. Staff recommends adopting a resolution upholding the decision to remove a sycamore tree from the city right-of-way on the sidewalk near 537 Hazel Avenue and direct staff to replant a replacement tree. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from council for staff? No? Yes?
Yeah.
Michael?
How common is that type of tree in the city? Did we put a lot of those up?
I don't really know the answer to that question at this point.
Okay.
I can find out and get back to you.
You know, we forget we have an arborist in the audience still.
It's quite common. It is. You got to come from the It is probably the most used street tree in the United States. Europe, London, if you watch all the walking in France, those are all sycamores that line the the streets there. So it is a standard tree used all over the area. So
It seems in this case, though, that the planting strip is very narrow, so would it typically have a larger area to grow in?
that is a very small planting strip. And you can see how it has maxed that strip out. The curb's already been compromised. The sidewalk's been replaced already. So it'll just continue to do that. So you're looking at replacement of curb and sidewalk every 10 years. You probably have to redo it. One thing about the London plane or the sycamore is that it is very good about having its roots cut. So it handles that well. Mm-hmm. But yeah, they're a great tree, but it's the wrong spot.
And in terms of its proximity to the utility pole, it looks like it's right next to it. Is there a typical guideline for how much spacing you would want to have between a utility pole and a tree?
With a utility pole, I would like to see the whole drip line width. So you know, 20 feet or so, because you're getting that crown spread coming out that's going to start interfering with the pole, the equipment on the pole, and it'll disfigure the tree being cut back, because they'll also cut it back from the pole if they need to get to their equipment. So
okay. All right,
it's poorly located.
Anything else? Irene?
Yes, thank you. I'm not sure who can answer this. Don't we typically, if a tree is cut down, replace it by 2 trees?
So there are 2 options. You can replace it with 1 36-inch box or 2 24-inch box trees.
Okay, thank you.
Marty, you have anything for staff? Questions?
Yeah,
from the report.
A couple things. Since I missed the earlier discussion on trees, I love trees, okay? I have 3 volunteer trees on my property right now. I have a live oak, some kind of pine, and I'm hoping that it's an avocado tree that came from the next door neighbor's tree. So they're on my property. They're going to be there till hopefully long after I'm gone. This seems like a case where if we were going to do it all over again, we wouldn't put that tree there underneath the street light. So my first interest would be...
Are there questions? Because we want to hear from the appellant, too.
Can we relocate the street light? Have staff looked into the cost in putting the street light on the other side with the pole? Just curious. And yeah, I'll leave that question first.
So we have not looked into relocating the street light. If we did relocate the street light, that would require doing essentially a photo study to determine the illumination of the lights. When street lights are placed, they're placed at certain distances apart to have a minimum light level on the street, so that would need to be adjusted, and that could be a cost that we incur should we be directed to council to do that. I'm not sure at the cost for the study or the potential relocation, but I think order of magnitude it would be several $1,000s, whereas the replacement of this tree is under $200, and PG&E would be taking care of the removal cost.
Got it. That's it.
Thank you. Thank you, John. So, is there somebody representing an appellant or that's going to speak this evening?
We have
come on up, please. And thank you very much for your patience.
Grammatico.
Pardon me?
Terry Grammatico.
Okay. Thank you very much for your patience and...
Good evening, Honorable Mayor
evening.
and City Council. My name is Terry Grammatico, and that tree is, first I just want to say I'm up here against that whole those 2 trees, and I don't even know how to even start. Besides, this isn't even anywhere near that problem. I've been there at 537 Hazel for 31 years. And my neighbor across the street wanted the trees to be like Burlingame and on the street. And so she had a, plight, and it took a very long time, and it was, congratulations, it happened. And my son was born in April 1999, and the tree came about a month later, and then Karen, her tree came across the street on the day her daughter was born in the hospital. So we were really excited. So about that, I didn't know about the camera like this, but I have my own little show that you could pass around if you choose, just to show you that there is this tree here. This is the tree, and the street light is up there, very compromised. But I don't want to put anybody down. This is never pruned. I've been there 31 years. I have called, can somebody just trim it? Because the branches, but several for cars and people walking in front of my house had knocked and said, can you just trim your tree? It's not my tree, I'll call the city. And then PG&E has been there and they do their job, but they don't do anything else. I'd say, can you just kind of take a little bit of the sides off? They can't because they're up there for the pole. But there is lighting. I can show you that I'm the one with the dark, dangerous area. I work night, I work at a Safeway, and I've come home very late at night for the last couple of years with my shift. And I understand that you can trip and fall, but all the trees on our block are the same, except mine has the light, but all the leaves are all over. And I feel as a homeowner, you need to take care of what's in front of your house and rake your leaves and make it safe for you. I'm sorry that the person tripped and fell and broke her wrist, but I've been there 31 years, and I cannot believe that I didn't know I wasn't informed of anything. I pulled up, and the tree, somebody was putting a sign up, and I said, oh my gosh, we're finally getting this tree trimmed. I was so excited. Then the girl came outside, the daughter from around the corner, who was her mother, and she said, I can't believe it. It took me 8 months to get them to get rid of this tree. And I didn't even understand what she said. So I walked over and I looked and I said, removal? We're talking about trimming here. And she said, no, that tree's coming down. There's no option. There's no discussion. It's coming down. She didn't even come to the meeting. So, I don't want to make ugly neighbor and get all about that, but my only request is that you at least try to trim it. If somebody could just trim it and see if it can work. You can see you can see the light. Like I try to take different areas where you can see the light. When you pull on Genovan to this house, to that side, you can see the street light. So it's not pitch black and dangerous like that. It is dark, and it just needs to be trimmed. And it's very emotional for me because that tree's been there so long. And the whole street, this 500 block has all the same trees. But mine happens to be there. But all of them have wires coming out all over. But this one grows and covers the light. But the leaves, they're all over. Why the neighbors don't rake their leaves and risk tripping and falling, that's up to them. I don't believe that I should have to see my tree or the tree that belongs to the city come down because nobody's pruned it. I don't want to repeat myself, but I need to really stress, nobody comes and trims this tree. If you just trim it and try, and, I'm willing to see if it, I don't want another tree there. Like, if you're going to pull and tear this tree down, it's not the point because there needs to be a tree there. Yeah, I love all the trees and stuff, but there's nothing wrong with this tree. It's not diseased. I don't know why the city arborist said it had to come down, probably from the street light. But it's been there like that this whole time. The street light has been there. the city planted the tree there. And I watch it grow, and it's been there all these years. And I just ask that if you could please just reconsider your decision and try with a trimming and see where that goes. Thank you. Thank you.
If it's okay, I'm going to come over and get that.
Oh.
Council have any questions for the appellant? Okay. Are there any speaker cards, Melissa? Okay, we can call them up.
Martin Atkinson, followed by Janet Corvey.
Hello, Mayor Medina and council. Sorry, I know it's late and I'll be quick. I'm the neighbor across the street. We've been there 26 years, been her neighbor, Terry's neighbor, Martin Atkinson. That little girl that was born, that was my daughter, and 3 days later when we came home, the city planted the other tree for us. So we're very attached to those trees. In fact, all 7 trees, there's 7 sycamores in that vicinity. They were all planted within days or weeks of each other, and so Terry and I watched our kids grow up along with those trees. So we definitely have an attachment to those trees, and I think the other people probably do too. There is one on her side up farther. Some of those leaves are going to keep coming that way anyway. And I would add that the planter strip is narrow. That is true. They've had to replace some of the sidewalks. Those things are all factual. It's the same on our side of the street, and I would worry that it's a slippery slope, and if people are going to complain about buckling and everything else, we're going to lose our trees too. So I have some concern about it. The darkness probably impacts 2 people by far the greatest, which would be Terry and us. I have no complaints on my side of the street. It's not bothering me. In fact, in front of that person's house, it is fairly well illuminated. It really isn't dark, and your sidewalk is in good shape there. I just wanted to offer those words. We're fond of those trees. We hate to see them go.
Thank you, Mark. Next, please.
Janet Corvey.
As you know, I'm Janet Corvey. I've lived in San Bruno for over 40 years, and I basically came to support Terry. And ironically, I lived on Genevieve right around the corner from Hazel for 38 years and recently moved to Georgia, which is right next to Florida Park area, and that whole argument about the trees. And I mean, I don't want to see any trees come down anywhere because, I mean, aesthetically, you know, it makes a neighborhood beautiful, and I'm all about that. So, and for years, I've walked my dogs in the neighborhood of Terry's. I've visited her or whatever at nighttime, and I've never had any problem with the lighting or the leaves or anything like that. And the one thing I want to say, same as Martin, I'm just worried if you take this one tree out, because eventually right now the sidewalk's perfect. Why can't it come down in 10 years when it begins to buckle if you're going to take a tree down? Which I'm not advocating that, but it's just a point I'm making. Because I would hate to see that once you take down the one, and like Martin said, then comes the next one, and the next one, the next one, and you're replacing the trees. But the trees you replace, let's be honest, are this big. I mean, I will be probably, won't even know that it's a tree, or I'm going to be pushing up trees. You know, it's a long time from now, 20 years before it becomes a beautiful tree as the one is in front of Terry's house. So that's really all I have to say. Obviously, I'm thumbs down on taking down the tree. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Anybody else that wanted to speak on this? Okay, so we're going to bring it back to council if there's any additional questions or comments for staff.
Through the chair?
Irene?
Oh, okay. I was just noting in the staff report that the last time it was trimmed, that the city trimmed it, was in 2009. So that's quite a while ago. I have a comment to make, but I don't know if everyone else would like to, but I'll just throw it out there. With the pictures, it seems to me that the city should go out and trim it down to a more lollipop shape, because it really does spread out there. And I walk my dog too on Hazel and all those other neighborhoods, and yes, sometimes neighbors don't pick up the leaves, sometimes they do, so you just have to be careful. And I too agree that if we start with one that way, it could be easily construed that the rest should go down for the same reasons. So I would like to suggest that we kind of table this until staff has a chance to actually go out and trim it to a more manageable shape.
Laura? I think I'm just going to, for time purposes, to say ditto. Michael or, Michael?
No, I think that sounds like a good idea. If there is an opportunity, and I'd like to hear from staff if there is an opportunity to do some trimming that might help the situation before we make the final
Absolutely.
decision.
Javon Grogan, City Manager again. This was a hard one for staff. To be quite honest, I almost reversed the initial decision to remove the tree. But what it really comes down to is this is not the only tree like this. In the city, we have probably several hundred trees like this. Our challenge is we do not have the resources to pollard trees like this on an annual basis. We are on a 4-year maintenance cycle. And so while absolutely we can address this issue this one time and go out and prune the tree, I can tell you that the budgeted and staff resources that you have does not allow us to make this decision on a continual basis to maintain our trees on an annual basis. We are on a 4-year cycle. The arborist and our staff arborist concluded that yes, you can prune this tree. Sycamore trees can be pollard, and they respond nicely to that. But it is an annual maintenance issue that we will incur that frankly we don't have the resources nor the staff personnel to manage. And so while we can do it for this one tree, I actually worry about the precedent we're setting for all of our other trees. And so essentially what we are doing is replacing this one tree with a tree that's more appropriate for our maintenance resources. And that's really appropriate for the location. The other trees on the street are not causing the issue that this one is causing because it's directly under the power line and under the street light. And so I do not foresee the same conclusion being made with the other trees. It's really, sadly, a resource issue. And one of the things, frankly, that I would be concerned about is we are on notice that there has been a trip and fall with this tree. We would have to do a special operational maintenance schedule for this one tree to make sure that we absolutely do it every year and continuing to maintain that. And we frankly, with our current resources, could not keep that up for other trees of a similar nature.
If I may just add to that, if the city council does wish to retain the tree, then I would recommend that the city also retain a light specialist to determine what the appropriate level of illumination should be under the tree and determine whether the amount of pruning is sufficient to reach that particular light level, because we know that if there is a claim as a result of the light, that the injured individual will likely hire someone to do that precise calculation. And so without that information, I think the city would be, well, let's just say in the dark, for lack of a better term.
Marty, any questions or comments? Or whatever?
I would agree with what's been said up here already about giving it a shot, trimming it back. I think there are a lot of dark spots in San Bruno with the lighting. The lighting was based back in that day when the city was put together, and there's some really dark spots. And at some point, reviewing the lighting across our city and whether having the amount of streetlight poles are appropriate, and going forward, looking at how we can look at specifying budgets to retain the trees that we have, and going to our residents and making clear that to them, hey, we're going to need some revenue And it seems like it's going to be a constant theme with an old city that we have to increase our revenues because all these things cost money. So I don't know if we need to go to an expert. I think you could probably, at least maybe, of course, look into staff with knowing what the amount of light that is necessary there and getting some equipment to monitor that. But at some point, doing that across the city would be something that I would be interested in knowing about how the lights around our city and the dark spots and how we can improve the safety for everybody. So make it, so adding a little light to this, I think of trimming it down is what I'm in favor of.
So it sounds like the council's consensus is they want to go in the direction of giving it an opportunity. However, the one thing I would bring up, which again, as I stated in the last conversation that we had on the appeal, is to just say prune it and not take the city attorney's advice and do due diligence to have some light because, again, we don't want to leave ourselves open for risk, but I think that's important. I think what the council's wanting to know is, I know it was 2009, so that's, if we're talking about a 4-year cycle, that's obviously surpassed it. I think they're wanting to see if that takes care of the problem. However, the illumination is still a concern for me because obviously claims will be filed. We've had an incident or incidents, and so the city is basically on notice that this is a problem. So we need to either try to remedy it to where it is safe, or they have to go to the next step. So I'm willing to go down that path, but I still want the cities to be protected. And I know we're talking about this tree for Terry, but and also Marty, you're saying about the other city and the lights. The city manager just told us we don't have resources to trim this tree yearly, and to expand it to the whole city, I'm not sure where we're going to get that, but I think I got your point. But for Terry's tree, staff, what is your thought on what you've heard from council?
If council would like to accept the appeal, we will certainly trim this one tree. We will put an annual maintenance schedule around this one tree and conduct a light study to ensure that it's the correct illumination. Should the light study come back that it's, even with the trimming, the illumination is not sufficient, we can return to council for additional direction.
So just so it's clear, if council wants to go down the path to uphold the appeal, then it's with the understanding, I'm asking for council's consensus, that we have a light person go out to review it, we try the pruning, but in all sincerity, Terry, I just want to be candid that if things don't go down a path to where it's remedied, it probably would have to come back just for the safety and element aspect of it, but, okay. No, well, nobody's voted yet. Never jinx things. So I just wanted to clarify. Laura.
So, through the chair, I guess when we're talking about the pruning of it, you can go in and get a trim of a haircut, or you can go in and get really cut, right? So, that's actually what I'm thinking is, I'm saying go in and actually cut this thing down the way it should have, 10 years ago, because it's so big and and based on that, is it something that can get into a regular schedule? And if we are maintaining a regular schedule, it won't be an issue. So I guess maybe we use this tree, and there probably are others like this, that we can sort of see the path we go down and make a decision to remove them later down the road. Because I hear what you're saying also. I don't want to get on an annual basis of pruning trees because we can't afford that, right? And this is one of many trees out there. And in the situation with PG&E, they're willing to replace it and put another tree in there that we're not going to have to do any maintenance for a number of years. So I'd kind of like to see a good haircut on this one and see how long it takes us to come back and do some trimming.
And correct me, but if it would not be a trim, it would be a buzz.
Correct. Mr. Mayor,
Yeah,
through the oh, I'm sorry,
yeah,
go ahead.
Mark, go ahead. And then
You're going to say
Michael.
through the chair, if the council is inclined to make a motion to uphold the appeal, then I would recommend that the motion upholding the appeal would be subject to the city's obtaining an independent study for the illumination and determining the extent of the pruning needed to reach that illumination level, and if for some reason that isn't feasible, that the matter would come back to the City Council.
I move what he just said.
And then Michael had a question before we...
Oh, sorry.
That's all right.
So I was wondering is there any precedent for having an agreement with homeowners that are interested in preserving a specific tree to take responsibility for it? And I don't know that that's the case here, but if we do have a tree that is, it's beyond the city's means to maintain, but there is strong, like in this case, emotional attachment to the tree, could that tree then become their responsibility?
So if I may, through the chair, through Mr. Mayor, there are a couple of ways to address that. The first way I think you're suggesting is with an individual agreement with the property owner. The difficulty with that is that it requires an annual imposition on the property owner and on the city to make sure that every year the city is added as an additional insured to the homeowner's insurance policy. So for every year that the tree is in existence, and irrespective of who the property owner is, the city would have to be able to follow up on that and make sure that it had an additional insured certificate. The other way to handle that situation is to adopt an ordinance that's citywide that transfers the liability from those trees to the property owner. And the City Council may know that from our prior claims settlements involving trip and falls on sidewalks, of which there have been a number in San Bruno, that is always an option, and in fact it's an option that is recommended to cities by our risk pool JPA. Some cities do have liability shifting ordinances. I think some cities have faced challenges in adopting those ordinances because generally individuals believe that the risk will be on them, whereas in fact the risk will be on their homeowner's insurance carrier. But aside from that, that would be the other way to do it, is to have a liability shifting ordinance.
Yes. So is there action from council in regards to the decision?
I have moved to uphold what Mark said earlier about upholding the appeal, having the tree have a good haircut, and doing the light illumination study before, so that you can determine how much of a haircut it should have, and then going from there.
I think we understand the motion. Thank you.
Okay.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Unless you can figure out which one.
Councilmember Medina.
I'll take it.
Councilmember O'Connell.
Aye.
Councilmember Salazar.
Aye.
Vice Mayor Davis.
Aye.
Mayor Medina.
Aye. Let's move on to item D.
Item 6D, adopt resolutions for legislative actions required to initiate proposed refunding of outstanding certificates of participation Series 2000 police facility financing. 1, resolution of the City Council of the City of San Bruno approving a lease financing and the issuance and sale of lease revenue bonds by the San Bruno Public Financing Authority to refinance prior obligations of the City of San Bruno and approving related documents and official actions. 2, resolution of the San Bruno Public Financing Authority authorizing the issuance and sale of lease revenue bonds to refinance prior obligations of the City of San Bruno and approving related documents and official actions. And 3, resolution of the successor agency to the San Bruno Redevelopment Agency approving the amendment of a reimbursement in order to refund certain outstanding obligations, requesting San Mateo County Countywide Oversight Board approval of the amendment, requesting certain determinations by the San Mateo Countywide Oversight Board, and providing for other matters properly relating thereto.
Wow. Melissa, thank you.
Thank you, Melissa.
Finance Director.
Yes. Good evening, Honorable Mayor, City Council members. I'll provide a brief overview of the lease revenue bond proposal before Council this evening, before turning it over to Jim Fabian. He's the city's municipal financial advisor from Fieldman Rollap and Associates, who'll be presenting the bulk of these slides. Just in summary, the city is proposing to refinance the debt that we currently have when we built the police facility back in 2000 to take advantage of favorable interest rates today. Presently, the remaining principal on the debt we owe on this facility is just under $6 million, and it carries an interest rate of between 5.15 and 5.25% payable through the end of 2031. The financing team is anticipating refunding this debt to issue lease revenue bonds at an anticipated interest rate below 3%. The city and many other public entities around us will realize additional revenue from this refinancing. So just in summary, the agenda tonight will be covering a review of the 2,000 certificates of participation, the current debt on the facility, the finance team members, the lease revenue bond refinancing existing of the debt issuance structure and the estimated refunding results, bond documentation, the debt issuance process from today going forward, and then a summary of tonight's actions. I'll turn it over to Mr. Fabian.
Thanks, Keith. Good evening, Mayor, members of council. I'll try to be as brief as I can in going through the presentation. So as Keith mentioned, back in 2000, the city issued certificates of participation to build the police station at the BART station. Approximately $9.6 million of debt was sold back in 2000 to construct the facility. It's a 3-story building, approximately 25,000 square feet. The building itself is owned by the city of San Bruno, and the land is leased from BART. The city occupies roughly 80% of the facility, and BART has the remaining 20%. In looking at the existing debt that you have been paying since 2000, the annual carry cost of that debt is about $650,000. The debt is an obligation of the city's general fund. However, the city has an arrangement with the successor agency whereby the successor agency pays the debt through tax increment revenues or tax revenues through the annual ROPS payments made by the state to the successor agency. So the ROPS are your recognized obligation payment schedules. Each year, the successor agency sends those to the Department of Finance for approval. The city has a reimbursement agreement with the redevelopment agency, now the successor agency, to use that tax revenues to pay the debt service on the debt. So it's, even though it's technically a general fund obligation, it's paid through the redevelopment agency, and it's been this way since 2000. And this was after redevelopment went away. It was approved by the Department of Finance as well. As Keith mentioned, we have about $6 million of debt left. That debt has an interest rate of 5.15% to 5.25%. There's a payment coming up on February 1st of $335,000. You'll get tax revenues from the Department of Finance through the county, through the ROPS process to pay that debt payment. After that debt payment is made on February 1st, there'll be $660,000 of debt left, and that will be refunded. As Keith mentioned, the bond counsel team, the finance team members are made up of the bond counsel, disclosure counsel. Dave Fama of Jones Hall is here with me tonight. I serve Fieldman Roll-Up and Associates as the municipal advisor to the city. The bond underwriter will be Prager and Company. Trustee will be Union Bank. The rating agency that we'll go to will be Standard & Poor's. This is the same team that has been utilized for the wastewater debt and the water debt back in 2017, and then also the refunding of the wastewater debt previously and the issuance of pension obligation bonds to pay off the side fund for the public safety. The structure proposed tonight will be lease revenue bond series 2019. As I mentioned, they'll be secured by the general fund, but the tax revenues from the amended reimbursement agreement between the city and the successor agency will actually pay for the debt. This will be the same lien priority as exists now. The debt will remain the same, no additional length or term added. It will be the same as it is now. There will be no debt service reserve fund. It'll be a fixed rate debt for 12 years, and it'll be level debt service. The net present value savings gained by doing this based upon current market conditions is 12%. If you went to the GFOA website and looked at their best practices, they would recommend that the city look to refund debt that has a net present value of 5% or greater. And by net present value, that factors in all the costs associated with doing the refinancing and provides you with a true savings threshold. So we're well above that 5% threshold that the GFOA recommends based upon market conditions as of October 30th. The average savings is approximately $128,000, and the city gets about $19,000 of that savings. So one of the things that, since this is property taxes, you get a share of the property tax dollar. The remaining savings goes to other taxing entities in San Bruno that get a share of the property tax dollar. I think in the staff report we laid out how that $128,000 is broken out. The estimated true interest cost for the refunding will be approximately 2.78% or under 3%, as Keith mentioned. In terms of total dollars, the net present value savings is about $1.5 million, and the financing cost for the consultants is roughly $239,000. Tonight in your packet you have 3 resolutions, so you're actually wearing 3 hats tonight. You're doing a resolution of the City Council, you're doing a resolution of the authority, and you're doing a resolution of the successor agency. All of those actions are required to refund the outstanding certificates of participation. You are approving all the financing documents necessary. The first document is the indenture. This is the agreement between the authority and the Union Bank acting as the trustee. It lays out the terms of repayment of the debt. There's a lease agreement between the authority and the city whereby the police facility is leased to the authority and then leased back. We also have a site lease between the city and the authority. Again, this is part of the legal arrangements to be able to issue the debt. Then we have an assignment agreement between the authority and Union Bank whereby the authority assigns the payments to Union Bank, who then pays the bondholders. And then we have the amended and restated reimbursement agreement. Again, the original reimbursement agreement was adopted back in 2000 when the COPs were issued. It's being amended to recognize that we're refunding 2019 lease revenue bonds, and the agreement stays in place. So tonight's action, you have the 3 resolutions. You're approving the finance team, and then you're delegating to the city manager any required changes that need to be made in the legal documents. We're going to go to the Oversight Board on November the 26th. This is the County Oversight Board. As of July 1st, you no longer have an Oversight Board here specifically in San Bruno. It's been consolidated into San Mateo County now, and they have a meeting on November 26th where we have a staff report to them that shows that you're adopting this resolution tonight to approve the refunding, and then they approve your action as the Oversight Board. Then this will allow us to send certified resolutions to the Department of Finance to have them approve the amended reimbursement agreement. We plan on sending that right around November the 28th. They have 65 days in total to approve it. While we're waiting for the Department of Finance to approve it, we'll go to Standard & Poor's and get a credit rating. And then we'll come back to you in February to approve the preliminary official statement, which will allow us to sell the bonds, and then we'll have the negotiated sale of the bonds in late February and close right around the first part of March. So it's a little bit of a protracted schedule due to the Department of Finance, 65 days, but we try to make the best use of time by using that to do the rating agency process. So again, tonight we have the City Council resolution approving the issuance of the bonds, approving the documents which include the indenture, the site lease, and the lease, and other documents. We have the authority resolution, again, approving the issuance of the lease revenue bonds and approving the required legal documents. And then the last resolution will be as the successor agency approving the amendment to the reimbursement agreement and then requesting the County Oversight Board approval. Happy to answer any questions you have regarding this matter.
Questions from council? Irene?
To the chair, if the interest rates change dramatically between now and February, what happens?
Well, right now what we did is we assume current market conditions. If the rates do change, as I mentioned in the presentation, we have roughly a 12% net present value savings right now. We could weather a little bit of rate increase. Rates are definitely trending upwards. The Federal Reserve last week said there'll probably be a rate increase in December and likely 3 more in 2019. So the upward trend in interest rates will continue. And so, you know, that 12%, which we're estimating now, might be a little less, you know, depending upon where rates are. But you have enough buffer between the GFOA threshold of 5% versus the 12% we're estimating, I think, to weather any volatility in interest rates.
Okay, thank you.
Marty?
Excuse me. How much does the city pay in leasing the property? We own the building. We will own the building in 2031 after we pay back the bonds.
Correct.
How much does the city yearly pay to lease the property?
Well, you're paying roughly $650,000 a year for the bonds that were used to build the building.
Right.
And so we're going to be reducing that by approximately $128,000 a year.
Got it, right. I guess,
yeah.
Different question.
Right. I think I know the question that the council member is getting at. Essentially, the land is owned by BART, so I think what you're saying is how much do we pay BART to lease the property?
Correct.
I do not believe that there is an annual lease payment to BART. We can pull up the documents. I believe it may be, if there is a lease amount, it's a nominal amount, but there is not a significant, several $1,000s lease payment that we pay to BART.
If I may, I can just add quickly to that. The finance director and I did review those documents earlier today, and there's an offsetting lease payment, which is identical between the city and BART and the city. So the city is doing a sublease from BART. There's a lease payment in that lease. The city is subleasing a portion of the building back to BART, and it's the same lease amount. So it's essentially an offset.
A zero cost.
That's right.
And for another 50 years, forever? How long is the lease?
I knew you were going to ask a question that I didn't prepare for. I'm sorry, I don't remember offhand what the time of the lease is. I don't recall. I'm sorry.
Okay. So there's very, very little risk here because you have such a big amount of a buffer of the 12%.
I think that's a correct statement. Again, you already have this debt. We're not extending the term. We're just simply trying to take a 5% debt down to 3% and save money. Thank you.
Okay. Do you have additional information, Finance Director? Okay. Any other questions from colleagues? Michael?
I'm wondering about the financing cost, $239,000. It looks like it's roughly about a sixth of the net present value savings. I'm just wondering, is that reasonable? Is that typical for this type of transaction?
In my experience, it is. That's typical. That includes the cost of bond and disclosure counsel, the cost of the municipal advisor, the cost of the getting a bond rating, Union Bank as your trustee escrow agent, We're going to need a verification agent. We're going to have title insurance, and then the bond underwriter. And that's an estimate of $239,000 is right in line from a perspective of a typical financing cost that you would incur. And very similar to what we had. The wastewater and water bonds were a higher amount, so the actual amounts were higher, but proportionately it's roughly the same.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Any other questions, comments from council? So there are, as was indicated, there are 3 resolutions, each needing to be taken separately. Is there any action on the first resolution as the city council?
I'll move to introduce the resolution.
Is there a second?
Second.
Okay. Melissa?
Councilmember Medina?
Aye.
Councilmember O'Connell?
Aye.
Councilmember Salazar?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Davis?
Aye.
Mayor Medina?
Aye. There's a second resolution as the Public Financing Authority.
I'll
Move to.
move to introduce the resolution.
Thank you.
I'll second.
Melissa?
Councilmember Medina?
Aye.
Councilmember O'Connell?
Aye.
Councilmember Salazar?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Davis?
Aye.
Mayor Medina?
Aye. Last resolution as the successor agency.
And I'll move to approve the resolution.
I'll second.
Councilmember Medina?
Aye.
Councilmember O'Connell?
Aye.
Councilmember Salazar?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Davis?
Aye.
Mayor Medina?
Aye.
Item 6E, waive first reading and introduce an ordinance amending section 10.24.030, adoption of rates.
Why so many cheers tonight? Nobody.
Good evening, Council. Javon Grogan, City Manager. I will be presenting item 6E tonight. I have 2 slides. So, so this item, waive first reading and introduce an ordinance amending section 10.24.032. So what do we mean? What we're really talking about is cable enterprise rates. And providing the city manager the authority to set those rates. So slide 2, what is the issue? The San Bruno Cable Enterprise typically adjusts rates on a biannual basis to adjust for market conditions and operating costs. That's done typically through a council staff report and resolution. And these biannual rate changes have actually worked well in the past to really attract and retain customers. However, there has been a significant shift in the cable TV market over the last 5 years. A few of those shifts have been moving away from service contracts. It really used to be that there were typically 1 to 2 year service contracts, and so customers were really locked into one provider. So adjusting your rates on a more infrequent basis worked. There's currently more competition in the satellite from satellite TV streaming services. Be there Hulu, YouTube TV, or various streaming services, telecom providers, AT&T, Uverse, and so there's a lot more competition. In addition, customers are moving to what in the industry is commonly referred to as skinny TV bundles, and so really trying to cut the cord, moving away from your typical TV package with several hundred channels to a more streamlined and tailored TV package. In addition, a number of people are cutting the cord and really preferring high-speed internet over traditional cable and going with those more streaming services that offer more tailored and sometimes cheaper, more specific products. And then a lot of the cable TV providers are introducing more targeted TV and internet packages to discrete users, be they targeted for people that like sports or a certain demographic. And they're also introducing more customer attraction specials. So if you sign up this month, you get this deal or an intro rate. And so the recommended change that we're recommending is to allow the city manager to adjust cable rates. And this will, we think, allow us to move with the market. Now, all cable rates will still appear in the annual master fee schedule that is presented and adopted by council during the annual budgeting process. And so, by this, what are we considering? So, as you will hear at your very next council meeting, your cable TV department has undertaken a endeavor to really look at the enterprise. We will be providing you with a full presentation on the history of the enterprise, some changes really that have taken place in the last 3 months. As you know, the new cable director, Sandeep, started 3 days after I did. I started on a Monday and he started on Wednesday. And so at your very next council meeting, you'll hear a lot of the changes that have been made to date. And I'll just jump that by saying I think Sandeep is doing an amazing job to really help out our cable enterprise. So some of the things that we're considering doing are introducing some of those skinny TV packaging and really pairing those with internet services at various tiers. So slower speed, medium speed, higher speed, having focused TV packages. One of the things is a Hispanic focused TV paired with streaming internet sports. So if you looked at our cable TV trucks over the last couple weeks, there's actually an advertisement on there in Spanish advertising a new streaming package that we now offer in the last few weeks. Offering lower cost residential packages and kind of tailored business telephone service packaging. Also targeting packages towards business, high-speed business internet and TV packages specifically tailored for businesses, be they sports bars or other things. And then also potentially looking at bulk service proposals to apartments and condominium projects. And so we're really going to develop a couple rates, test them out in the market. We may make a shift after a couple weeks or months, but this recommendation is really asking council to provide the city manager with the authority to set those rates so we can be a little bit more competitive and adjust as the market does.
Any questions of the city manager? Marty?
Yes. So I understand, and actually I really do appreciate the forward kind of thinking, the flexible thinking here. I'm just looking at from a customer right now. Are they going to say, well, are you raising my rates without going to council? Are we empowering you to raise the rates on everybody, or just some flexibility in packaging these rates together?
I would say you're empowering your staff to run the enterprise. Okay. And that may mean some overall adjustments to rates. That may mean some tailored packages. That may mean having rates where certain customers pay a different rate than other customers based on their package. One of the things that you'll hear at the next meeting that we have historically not had is user data, like most cable providers have. So we're acquiring that data, and based on the programming and the usership, we really want to tailor our packages how most cable enterprises do. They have very good data on what's being watched, so they can tailor their packages and create rates that really reflect their customer base. And so, yes, you are empowering your staff to set rates.
Okay. Other questions? Irene?
Not a question, but I appreciate you bringing this forward, especially since neither of you have been here very long. And I appreciate the reasoning behind it, that for a long time we could set the rates every once in a while, and it wasn't we didn't need to be so nimble. And we've been hearing over and over again how arduous it is to change the rates to keep up with the other companies that are out there, and I think this is a good way to go. So the only thing I would like us to see with this is some kind of, maybe every 6 months, some kind of quick update about how's it going, and some kind of report back on it.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Michael, Laura, anything?
And I had those similar comments, and I appreciate you bringing this forward and the forward thinking. I think this is exactly what we need to be doing. And I like Irene. I'm not sure what it is you need to bring back to us and how often, but I think we'll get through that process. But definitely some sort of review and a confirmation we're going down the right path. But I'm surprised on the things that other cable companies are charging that we don't, number one. And I'd like to see the flexibility with package deals. I think this is a great vision looking forward.
Okay. Marty.
Just a cable question. How are we with fiber? Are we done with the amount of fiber that we were going to do over, or is that we're going to hear about that next week over at Crystal Springs?
Next meeting.
Yeah.
We have a comprehensive presentation.
Yeah.
Next meeting.
Okay.
Let's on the topic. So, any other questions on what's being brought before us? Okay, there is some actions. Do we have anyone to waive the first reading?
I always forget how to do this. I'll waive the...
I move that we waive the first reading.
And I'll second.
Thank you. There's been a motion made and seconded to waive the first reading. All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you. Now, anyone to introduce?
I move that we move forward with the ordinance amending section 10.24.030.
Okay. Councilmember Medina?
Aye.
Councilmember O'Connell?
Aye.
Councilmember Salazar?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Davis?
Aye.
Mayor Medina?
Aye. Thank you.
Did we have a second? Did we need a second?
No.
Okay.
Let's move on to item number 7, comments from council members. Anything, Irene? Nope. Laura?
I just want to just compliment staff tonight on the presentations. Well done. Thank you for the data. Thank you for the information by all the staff members. So thank you.
Michael?
I agree with Laura. Good job, guys.
Marty? Yeah.
For everybody in the audience there, and I think it's really appropriate because there's something called Movember, all right? And it's all about, looking at their website, it's all about stopping men from dying too young. And what they ask you to do is to grow out a little facial hair, go to their website, and try to raise the awareness of prostate cancer, testicular cancer, mental health, suicide prevention, and overall men's health. So that's why I'm doing this, and it's just a little token and a reminder that men have to take care of themselves too. So that's it. It's Movember. It's November with an M, .com, and you could check it out, and that's it. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Marty. I know it's late, but I do have a couple things. I just wanted to say last Sunday I went and presented a certificate for a resident of ours. He goes by Jack, but it's Sean, who turned 100 on November the 10th. So that was exciting, and I will tell you, he looks great. And I know I'm already in trouble at this age, so he is. But it was great, and he was married for 75 years. He's lived in 12 homes in San Bruno, and there's just and he still plays the ponies, and he likes his red wine. So God love him. So also, I want to echo what a couple of my colleagues did, and I just want to the senior leadership team, all welcome with the newest addition. And everybody at the table, I feel good about it. It also reminds me that, Thanksgiving's coming up. So as the mayor, I'm thankful that you're all here, and I'm thankful to all the team that sits over there for what you do, coming on board quickly, getting up to speed fast, the dedication, and the care and concern that you truly have for this community. And I mean that. Also, for all those that are going through what they're going through the state, we think of them. We also offer a happy and safe Thanksgiving to our community and its residents. I'm going to go ahead and adjourn in a moment of silence for a lady who passed away, Anne Marie Jones, who passed away on her 83rd birthday on October 26th, leaving behind a wonderful legacy of school and community service. Born in San Francisco, Anna Marie lived in San Bruno for 75 years, completely selfless. As a devoted mother, Anna Marie volunteered throughout her children's education in San Bruno, public schools, on school site councils, with PTA and sports and music boosters. Long after her children had graduated from Cappuccino, she continued to support San Bruno School, volunteering on committees and activities, including helping the high school pass its bond measure that helped to rebuild Cappuccino High. She supported the city itself in numerous advisory capacities, including serving on the San Bruno's Personnel Board for decades, appointed by the City Council. Anna Marie loved young people, believing that each child has the capacity to soar. She relished helping youth, and during her 25-year career in San Bruno Park School District until she retired from Parkside as the office manager, she relished the opportunity to help them, and she befriended them. Enduring considerable personal challenges in her life with loss of family and health, she was never the victim, always the survivor. Anna Marie had a larger-than-life spirit, personality, and heart. Her smile and laugh are etched on the hearts of all that knew her. The world needs more Anna Maries. She set the bar high for what human kindness and goodness should look like. She will be missed. And now a moment of silence for her, please. And now our next meeting will be right here at 7 o'clock on November 27th. And again, happy Thanksgiving to all, and be safe. Meeting adjourned.